Fishing. Fishing.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 266. Hard to believe we've had this many. It's freaking awesome. And back for the third time, one of our favorite guests on the show, Dr. Robert Faust, one of the people that founded BioAg. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Nice
we
to be here.
We also have Fumidor joining us this evening as well.
Nice to be here. Cheers, guys. Nice to talk to Dr. Faust again. Welcome
Oh,
back.
yeah. He's a wealth of knowledge, and we love having him on the show. For those of you who don't know, Marty and I also have a class over apmjclass.com if you're looking for more long format aquaponic cannabis information. A quick background on Dr. Faust, if you aren't familiar with him. Dr. Faust is one of the leading people that did a lot of early on research on kelp, as well as fulvic and humic acids. He has helped develop a whole slew of different products that are used both in organic and non-organic agriculture, and is really been around in the agricultural scene longer than just about anybody else I know in terms of actually looking at the science of what's going on in your soil, making sure that you're doing the right practices and making sure you're not causing a lot of chaos in other parts of your garden at the same time. So thank you so much for coming on. I know we had an amazing time with you the first two times having you on the show, and you got a whole bunch of wonderful new things to tell us about. You're working on some new silica products and some other cool stuff, and we'd love to hear more about the different science that you've been working on. So thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. And it looks like I'm in Hawaii in the background, but no, I'm in the foothills of the coastal range near McMinnville, Oregon. So my new location. And I'll be doing some research here, some basically going to involve aquaculture and probably aquaponics. It's, you know, I have the resources, I just don't have the back and the manpower to do it. But anyway, it's fun. I have a lot of fish. I know that.
So tell us a little bit about some of the new interesting stuff that you've been up to. You've been working on all kinds of cool stuff lately. We had a chance to hear a little bit about it over on a Fumidor show I guess a week or two ago. We'd love to hear about it and what you've been up to.
Well, you know, I've been sort of laying back, and another guy who's taken over, Vikrant, who is really a go-getter, and he's moving the company ahead big time because he's a deal maker for sure, and he's doing a great job getting the word out. You know, it just the products are great. You know, they perform and people love them. It's just getting the word. And the business part of it was never my big interest. You know, but it's got to the point where, yeah, it's I want to be back up in the woods, but I'm pretty much doing the research and focusing, you know, new product development and research. But we have, for the first time, you know, almost complete, fairly complete microbiology research lab, along with our humic acid, our humus research lab, where we do the testing. But really what it turns out is how were these humic acids formed in the first place? Where did some of these compounds that stimulate plant growth activate genetic pathways and provide resistance to plants and animals? Where did that come from? What is that stuff? So, you know, just within the last few years, we know that there's 800 different compounds or more. I mean, basic compounds, at least 800 in humic acid. So there's a huge entourage effect of hundreds of different compounds. And they're basically produced by microorganisms. I mean, humic acid is the end point of decomposition of organic matter. So, you know, part of the carbon cycle, breakdown of organic matter. And when that starts happening, I mean, what's breaking it down? What's really going on there, you know? So you have a whole litany of microbes that come in sequence. You know, you have the thermophilic, the heat-loving ones that starts it, then you have a series of things going on, and then it works up to a set of microbes and fungi that create humic substances. And these are some of the kind of organisms we're looking at. Okay, now one of those organisms that actually produces humic substances is mycorrhizal fungi. That's just one. Now, a lot of these other microbes produce volatile compounds. And, you know, you get the odor and the smell of mushrooms when you're in the forest, or when you're around the mushrooms. They have, you know, a real faint kind of, you know, unique aroma, right? Well, I mean, why do they even bother? You know, okay, so what we just think is a nice, pleasant aroma. Let's have some maitake and some chanterelles, and oh wow! But what's going on in the soil is those compounds that we can only perceive as a scent or an odor are these volatile organic compounds that are signaling compounds or signaling agents that can, for instance, signal a plant to turn on its resistance to insects and diseases, drought. It's a way they communicate, you know, like the plants and the fungal members of the whole community. You know, the soil is a huge food web really. But that's actually what happens. Like I always say, you can make your own humic acids. It's just a matter of how long is that going to take? You know, the humic acids in the humates that we use are a minimum of 18,000 years old, and that's in younger deposits. And then some of these humates are 4.5, 6 million years old. So it's really something that's been decomposed as far as you can decompose something, and that's what you end up with. The minerals that were in it, and in carbon compounds. And a lot of those compounds fix these volatile organic compounds that the microbes, the fungi produced. And so it's a source of all that. But good soil management program, like biodynamic farming or true organic farming, where you're actually using some organic matter. You know, it's not organic out of the bag kind of a thing, but in the true sense of organic, you know, you're producing, you know, organic compounds. And it's really microbes. You're managing microbes. You're feeding microbes, and depending on what you feed them is what kind of microbes you're going to get. And those microbes are the ones that cycle organic matter and fix nitrogen from the air and release, for instance, phosphates or potassium from the rock or the mineral matter in the soil by the action of enzymes, organic acids, the whole thing. I mean, people couldn't have survived for all the decades that we've survived, you know, a good 100,000 years anyway, maybe a lot longer, if the soil didn't have its own mechanisms. And that's the very reason that civilizations come and go, is the abuse of the soil, their soil resource that gave them the wealth, made them what they are, you know. And then that all goes away because of increased pressure on the land and depletion. You know, people say, well, they've depleted the minerals. I say, we need more minerals. Let's put some soft rock phosphate out there. I love it. Let's put some dead mineral back on a dead soil. No. So there's specific microbes that increase phosphate availability, and they do it by producing humic substances and or humic substances themselves will release phosphate. So
I think you
this
bring up a great
business of,
I think you bring up
yeah,
a great
go ahead.
how long does it take for these humic and fulvic acids to be formed? I think everyone talks about so much about how important they are, but I think this is the first time I'm hearing about how long it takes. You know, how is there a fast way to do it, a long way to do it, or can fungi do it rapidly? And if not, it happens long over time in a soil setting, or how long do these compounds take to create?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you can do it. Yeah. See what happens that what they sell is compost, and they do a lot of it in Oregon on a big scale, you know, and it's a good starting material. You know, they call it compost, but you get it, it's still steaming. Compost isn't compost until it's got live critters crawling around into it. So it's gone beyond, you know, the heating and the steam and the actinomycetes in there. And it goes to the point where higher organisms are living in it. That would be things like, you know, the top of that would be the earthworm, and then other soil living critters, I call them. So then it's truly compost. They call that, well, you could call it aging or curing, or in the literature in England, in biodynamics, they call it well-rotted compost. And basically, that final stage is where the fungi take over and create the humic substances. So how long will that take? Okay, let's say if you're doing that yourself and you have good materials, you're doing a biodynamic approach, you use a starter of soluble humic acids, like our full humics. It's like priming the pump, because it feeds the microbes, and they just take off. It's definitely priming the pump, and you get a faster composting. So I think from start to finish to really the good compost, you're talking about 2 to 3 years. You know, it's possible to move it along faster. You know, if you have, well, I mean, if you had year-round, you know, warmer conditions than you have here. I mean, but bottom line is stuff will compost year-round. It's still happening in the pile. But okay, how do natural humates form? Okay, so some of the better natural humates you can find in these mountains, and how I started in Montana years ago, was peat, with certain kinds of peat, mainly the hypnum peat, which is a much higher pH. So it's like just about perfect for plant growth. So that's very high in humic substance. It's alive. You put it under a microscope and it's a jungle. It's like there's protozoa, everything's just running around. It's like ecosystem in itself, right? So that's where these things start as peat. You know, organic matter gets deposited and there's water with it. And it's from one of the floods, you know, pushed it into low spots. Or in the case of New Mexico, wow, inland sea, you know, huge inland seas. That's quite a story. And then the uplift of the Rockies pushed it, the humate deposits up above the continental divide. Yeah, so in New Mexico, you're mining these humates at very high elevation.
These are basically like tree moss humates, or what?
The ancient humates, like New Mexico humate, is things like cycads, cypress, mosses, you know, stuff that was around, you know, 5 and 6 million years ago, back in the Cretaceous, you know. So you're talking about ancient, and we know what they are because you can pull these layers apart and you can see the imprint of the leaf. So it's mostly going to be, the good stuff is mostly hardwood leaves, you know, oak and cypress, and then these cycads, palms and stuff that's, yeah. And then some of the peat or the humate or coal, you get into the coal, really, it's more like coal in North Dakota, and that's like inland saltwater seas. So it's a sedge, like salt grass, salt marsh environment. So not good product, not the good stuff. You know, the good stuff is basically going to be broadleaf tree leaves and stuff from trees, branches, bark, that sort of thing. So you have to understand that you can produce, the best thing is to use wastes and produce humic substances that way. And I'm helping a pretty big company around here do that. Actually, we have a huge amount of wood waste in Oregon, especially after the fires, all the wood they've had to like remove and they just shred it in big piles. It's like a huge, gigantic resource. I mean, there's millions of acres of dead trees out here. But so ideally, you know, you make your own humic substances locally, because that's not what's happening. It's sort of happening, but you know, that's a little ways off. So right now it's about harvesting something, you know, like humate, different types of humate or coal, lignite, stuff like that. Peat. We use it all. We use peat. We use special types of leonardite. You know, and they're all different. So that's why you have to have a lab to know what you're doing with it. But I started out years ago just buying. I mean, really years ago. I mean, like 50 years ago, buying biodynamic compost, and it was incredibly effective. And at the time, I really couldn't believe their application rates were meaningful. You know, you could get results from the rates they were talking. But I didn't understand the principle behind biodynamics or microbes. No, I went to a U.S. university ag school. What do you expect me to know? I'm not going to know that much. But I learned from my Amish and Mennonite neighbors. And yeah, so that was my first taste of somebody making their own humic acids. And I didn't even know the word humic acids at the time. I didn't know anything, you know, but that's, we're back to a proven technology, really. Biodynamics really is in a pure sense.
Dr. Owen, I know you really educated me on this the first time I heard you talk at the Regenerative Conference. I think that was the first time I saw you talk in person. I'd heard some of your talks previously before that, but after meeting you, it was a whole different experience, understanding your wealth of knowledge, especially on your longer format presentations. But how much more ahead Russia and that part of the world is in terms of humic acids and classifying them and grading them and all this other stuff, and fulvic acids, because the Western world really is way behind on that. I think it's a really important topic for people to understand when it comes to humic and fulvic acids. And welcome, Coot. Thanks for joining us.
Second to connect the audio. We always do the same thing, like, oh, what's going on? And everyone descends upon the person.
Welcome, Coot.
Hold on one second. How's that?
Welcome, Coot.
Yeah, I'm down here. Hey, Dr. Faust, you know this area better than these two gentlemen. I'm down in Florence on vacation, heading down to Brookings to look at property tomorrow. So I know you know this area really well. So it's beautiful down here. Sun's out. Going to be 60 tomorrow and down in Brookings. So the banana belt rises again.
Yeah. Well, we're getting the Pineapple Express. The weather flow is right out of Hawaii. That's why we get this warm weather.
Yeah. So the ride down here today from Lincoln City was just stunning. And it's always stunning, but you know, it's really nice in the winter when the sun's out. And you get this. We got the kite. What do you call it? The kite. The waves. The kite waves are that force with the moon and the sun. You know, that whole dynamic. So yeah, we're supposed to see some pretty dramatic stuff around Cape Blanco tomorrow. So looking forward to that.
I used to fly the coast a lot, you know. So
That's
used
right.
to
You have
call
a
it the
plane.
whale.
I forgot about that. You had a plane. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Vic does
Well, I
too. The
like the,
person I knew Vic when he first got here from India, and he was through concentrates. You know, Heather and Kale over there concentrates, and they were selling his neem oil and Karanja oil and neem and Karanja oils and meals. So, yep, pretty exciting. These two guys don't like neem, but that's okay. I use it. I recommend it. I promote the crap
Anti-neem.
out of it. I promote the crap out of it. So oil and meal and to the soil as well as the plants. So I think it's the most effective, for lack of a better phrase, IPM that you can use. And
good. I mean, bottom line, when I was in Hawaii, working, you know, I mean, you have the worst pest and insect and disease problems in the world, right?
yeah,
And so that was one of our most important tools. And it
well,
wasn't just for it was for nematodes. We had
right.
real bad nematodes, fruit flies.
You're
In the
responsible for
tropical
me.
world.
I talked to you many years ago when I first learned about bioag, and it was on the phone. And I said to you, "What do you know about neem?" And so you were kind enough to tell me about your experiences in Hawaii. So after that, I would tell people, listen, Dr. Faust is using it, so you got to come up with something better than that. One person was running around telling people that it was worse than Roundup. That would he's still in the scene. Yeah, he's still part of the scene. Yeah, it was worse than Roundup, would cause cancer, brain disease. What else was it? I don't know. You know, this whole litany of and what they're usually doing is they're looking at those horrible extracts from India that are done with solvents. And so if you put that on your plant, you inhale it and smoke it, yeah, you're probably going to have problems. But that's not neem oil.
They use emulsifying agents, and they use petroleum distillates and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, you got to know like what you're dealing with. You know, but yeah it's not as bad as Roundup.
I know.
If it was, they'd sell more of it. If it was as bad as Roundup, they couldn't sell it. They couldn't make enough.
You don't want to drink the concentrate. That's all.
Right. You know, what I use is what Dr. Faust is familiar with. It's virgin pressed. There's no garbage. There's no this. There's no that. And the other thing is that Karanja is a damn legume. Neem is a member of the, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a member of the mahogany family. It's unique in that it fixes nitrogens, which has allowed it to be spread to parts of the world where the soil was not optimum. But the other tree, the Karanja, which most Indians wouldn't know it, if you say Pongamia, they, oh yeah, I know Pongamia. Okay, and it's has fungicide and pesticide properties as well, but it's a legume. So what I still tell people, if you use Karanja meal, it's like alfalfa meal on steroids. So you're getting the benefits of that legume as far as, you know, all the goodness that we know from that, but you're also picking up your pesticides and fungicide properties and nematodes and what have you. So I went to a Karanja orchard down in Florida, and they used it to replace some of the tree growths that have been decimated by the orange skin disease or the green skin disease. I don't remember. It's you know the one I'm talking about. It's wiped out hundreds of thousands of trees. Yeah. So they replaced or planted the trees with the orchards with Karanja, because they didn't have to fertilize it. And then they were taking the seeds and pressing the oil for biodiesel. That was, they had the funding from the federal government, so that was being subsidized. But all they cared about was the oil, so they were almost giving away the meal. I mean, I was like, yeah, this is great. But then the word got out because I shut my mouth off. And so that source dried up when people started coming with serious money that I didn't have and buying, truckloads of it. So that party was over.
Well, see, basically, this is what we're talking about. Instead of importing, stuff like that
Right.
from a long ways away, we've got to look to the world's cheapest chemists first. And
Sure.
that's where we're talking about, rhizosphere positive cultures that we're working with. But
Right.
Steve was asking about, how come, as I get the question right, that a lot of this research is coming out of other countries, including Russia and China. Bottom line, just about everywhere. There's a deluge of research on use of microorganisms and getting more specific, more detailed, more being able to sequence DNA so we know what the hell it is in the first place. We know what we even have. And so in this way, we can produce the compounds that give us the result we want, like resistance to plant diseases and insects. Now, you may find them in something like Corange or other things, but a lot of times we're feeding the microbes with it, and it gives them the raw materials to put together volatile organic compounds that signal resistance in the plants.
I even use neem in substrate for some varieties of mushroom because it suppresses the contaminants and enhances the fungi we're trying to grow, like lion's mane or whatever, culinary / medicinal mushrooms. And trying to explain that to the cannabis world, I'd be better off just to get a bell and at Christmas time and ring a bell and ask for money, because it's just the silliness is too. I can't remember his name, but the German gentleman that spent 35 years studying neem, started in 1958 and ran through 1993. He started out as a PhD from University of Cologne. It starts with an S. It's called the neem tree, and obviously it wasn't a bestseller, and it was very expensive, but it's still used today as an upper division classes in India and Pakistan and elsewhere in Asia. As part of you're familiar.
Snitzer or Switzer or something like that.
He's got a name with too many consonants in the back name. It's got about 15 letters. Yeah. But that's a fantastic book.
World. It's you got such problems in the tropical situation, especially if you want to be organic.
Yes.
That's why I was trying to promote growing neem trees. Matter of fact, I took some into Belize and planted them in Belize, and the whole idea was, producing your own pesticides.
Right.
What I call pesticidal plantations. So every farm should have a certain acreage of pesticidal plants that they can use for whatever problem they have.
Right.
And it's not just neem. Neem's just one. You have what they call Chinaberry or the Azadiract indica is neem. Melia Azadiract is the tree of heaven. And it looks like the neem, but it grows in farther north. So there's a whole range of these things. But of course, again, I mean, the reason we don't have the real status quo farmers, whether they're cannabis or whatever they are, whether they're grass seed, it doesn't matter, because they've been influenced by the industrial model.
Sure.
So the industrial model of production,
and that, in my opinion, that's a problem in cannabis, that there's this formula that doesn't work, that gets repeated year after year after year and gets crazier and crazier and crazier. So the resistance to some of these the russet mites and other broad mites, and I mean, we've created some incredibly resistant pests. That's not a very, very good word, but that's in essence what we've done. We created a monster we were trying to destroy. You know.
That's one way of putting it. But yeah, what I call it is farmers farming mites.
Right.
Right. Because they create conditions. They foster the pest. I mean, maybe, unknowingly, and then they spray pesticides, which then protect basically the pests from their fungal pathogens, etc. So I always used to call it farmers, farming pests, because they're doing everything you need to do to have, pest infestation and make it worse by increasing resistance in the pests. See, where we've been able to actually, have total, no problem. We got to the point now where we know we're using the microbes that turn on. And of course, humic substances do this.
Sure.
But I mean, like I said, that turn on the resistance. And so the people that are using our products, I don't want to seem like I'm pushing products, but people that use our products, including me, essentially don't have insect problems or mite problems either. That sounds like a pretty.
Thank you. I've been using your products and promoting them for the better part of 13, 14 years. When I first met your former associate, Ryan, and he was kind enough to spend a lot of time with me to explain, because I started pushing people to try to mix their own soils instead of the commercialized. They're there to make and force you to use their weird versions of fertilizers. If you get Miracle Grow soil, then you want to use Miracle Grow fertilizer, Miracle Grow pesticide. I tried to explain this, that if it were legal, they would give you the soil. They would just say, here, we'll load it in a car for you. But now you're going to want to get the pesticide, fungicide, and herbicides from, because it's balanced for the soil. Balanced for what? Peat moss and perlite? I mean, you know what soil is, potting soil. It's pretty much.
It's the industrial marketing model. Matter of fact, commercial agricultural suppliers, a lot of times they sell the fertilizer as a lost leader. See, because and then they load you up on pesticides.
Oh yeah.
I see it all the time all around me. That's why I'm so disgusted. I moved to the mountains again. Because it's just it's insanity. And they're creating a problem and really a bottom line is this valley, the Willamette Valley, has been a very productive place, but they go industrial, they go monoculture, and then a disease hits one of those monocultures, and then it goes away. Like hops went to Yakima. Potatoes used to be here. No, they're not here anymore. They're in Idaho, Washington.
Right.
Used to be plums, prune plums, cherries, lots of stuff, and the hazelnuts. Now they're back on hazelnuts that were wiped out by the hazelnut blight. So that's what I'm saying about the industrial model. That's a monoculture with a rescue chemistry. And unless we can get people understanding how things work and giving credibility to those things, but the people that are pushing the chemicals and the salt fertilizers have gigantic resources. So you're looking at a problem that's bigger than the choice farmers make. It's how we're dominated by the petrochemical industry, and it's illegitimate son and daughter petrochemical and farm pesticides. It's all part of the same thing.
Sure.
And that's the problem. So how do we get around that? Well, that's for another day's discussion.
Well, when I worked with people still to this day of any size, I tell them you need two things from concentrates. You want to get a 5-gallon jug of bioag full power, and you want to get you know, the big bag, was it 50-pound bag of humic acid. I said, now you got a fighting chance to turn this, to work with this soil that's mediocre by design and try to elevate it to something that has some tilth, some value to it. And it was your products that allowed me to recoup, or not recoup, but I had seeds that I kept in several layers of cryovac in a freezer going back 22 years, and using your fulvic acid to pre-soak seeds using the directions, I was able to achieve almost over 23%, 25% germination rate on 22-year-old seeds. Some of the people that buy new seeds from these breeders, they're excited if they get that level of germination. So, I mean, they're not going to last 3 years from these poor breeding practices. It isn't going to happen.
No, they don't. I mean, the viability, it all starts with the seed.
Yes.
So that's not supercharged.
Yes.
At the time of germination,
yes,
you're not going to get the genetic potential.
No.
That's another thing they don't want them to know. See, and they'd always badmouth soil inoculants or seed inoculants. I mean, you know, the local university here, OSU, they are like dyed in the wool, you know. Oh no, that can't help. That can't work. I mean, you can't increase the germination. Well, a guy that works for me who just was working on his master's degree, did that as his master's degree at OSU on using humic substances and fulvic acid for seed germination.
Yes.
Did a paper on it. Well, guess what? It worked.
Yeah. Or they'll
hate
find
to
out
see
that, or they find.
they'll poo-poo it. They'll find a flaw.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah. Hey.
or
I know the words to this song. I've fought this battle, and I'm retired, and have at it. You reduced. I used to have a tagline on my post, and it said, "Once you reduce the wolf down to a chihuahua, you can't take it back." So you've taken these genetics from ancient cultures, you bring them to America, and then immediately you start denigrating the quality of the genetics. And you wonder why you have these immense problems with regard to yield, to potency, all kinds of, you talk about monocropping. You should see some of the strains that are mono. They've reduced it down to 1 or 2 terpenes or something. I mean, it blows my mind. Yeah, it's just, it makes no sense whatsoever.
No, I mean, there's sexual reproduction for a reason, you know, so.
Right.
You know, so everything is cloned because everything needs to be uniform.
Right.
You know, it needs to be a uniform world, you know.
You mean like the Christmas tree industry? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're into this uniform. Again, that's an industrial model. You know, it's good for things to be uniform so that they go over the conveyor belt. You know, so what do we do? I don't know. But really pass the knowledge on, because people knew how to do it before the industrial model happened. And that's my interest. How did they do it for thousands of years?
Right.
How did folk live in the Willamette Valley for 10,000 years fairly successfully, or Hawaii, which is even more interesting, in the Mayan and so forth? How did they do it without resources, without metals even? You know, so that's the model. People are always looking for the model for sustainability. Hey, they're out there. They've been there. You know, we just don't want to take a look at it because it's not industrial. It's primitive. It's, you know, well, do you want to survive, or you just want to eat up everything, eat up all the resources of the world and let the whole thing totally go to hell, you know? So that's the choice. Yeah, we can continue the industrial model until, you know, the whole machine falls apart, which is what will happen.
I live about 2 miles from the epicenter of what once was the hazelnut industry up near Oregon City. And I can drive you by tracts of homes that replaced those trees because once they got diseased, there was no going back, and they just had to take them down. And that whole, like you mentioned, that whole segment was gone, just disappeared over a 10, 15-year period. It's amazing.
That's it. They're planting more houses. See, they're taking ground and planting houses on it. And of course, this is what a lot of ancient civilizations what happened, where they really outgrew their resources. It just because we're clever, and have cheap fossil fuels doesn't mean we're immune from making the same mistakes. We can just do it bigger and quicker.
Yeah, more efficiently. Yeah, we can decimate farmland a lot more efficiently. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. You see the tractors they have out here now, like, oh my God, they take the whole road, and
right.
The equipment just bigger every year, bigger and heavier. And, it's like tanks. It's like warfare. And so they can get the job done, destroy the ground. Oh man, 5 to 10 years, you got cement. So that's what's going on, folks. Yeah. And they don't. You get a lot of people are paying attention though. There's a lot of people that if offered alternatives, they would go for it. Well, in fact, I worked with a big hemp farm, and they went for it completely. Our whole approach. And in fact, I have a big vineyard that they're establishing, and I'm working with, that took our entire program. From biochar, humates, and you name it, mycorrhizal. So there are people willing to go full bore and be examples. So bottom line, that's what you need. You need some folks that can take the risk and be good examples for the rest. And that's the only way farmers pay any attention anyway. It's like, well, look what old Joe's doing down the road. He just got a new pickup, and look at his crop. So what's he doing? And so, somebody has to be the example. Yeah. And we're working with some folks like we are.
I've been recommending adding neem and kelp meal, all the things that are now considered poison, you understand, to worm bins, to get it into the system as early as possible. And now when you get done a couple of years later, you have a true material to mix your potting soils. It doesn't come in a plastic bag that has a really funny, stupid picture on it with a bunch of ingredients, or what they call label building. And that's what dominates the cannabis scene. You have these mediocre soils that are without merit, that have little or any biology, and we're going to fix it because we're going to feed them. What are you going to feed them? We're our Newt program. Oh, okay. Good stuff.
A new salt combo.
Yeah, new salt. Yeah, right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, we're doing some things here in the Valley with composting on a massive scale. Company I work with, and I basically told him, I said, why don't you get into this? I mean, you're already in the biomass business. Why don't you make the investment? And he did. And this is a huge set of equipment, and to utilize all these wood wastes, and the humates, and and microbial. I have a cold composting method that uses fungi, and so I think there is an opportunity for good soils. I told him there's a need. We can do it.
There's definitely a need.
Cheap, local ingredients, and it's going to work. Not a problem. You have to do it on a scale.
The year that this went legal here in Oregon was a disaster on a number of levels, not the least of which was you had just had the spreadsheet crowd, from the hedge funds, the Canadian banks, Asian bank, the drill. And it was a disaster. And, you can, peat moss and perlite is not a soil. And the claim is made over and over. No, this one's different. No, it isn't. It's peat moss and perlite. And a tablespoon of this and a tablespoon of that, and a really cool graphic, and all of a sudden you got a potting soil. So,
yeah,
that's your
stuff is mine. That's not sustainable stuff.
No,
peat moss and perlite. That's all mined. But see, that's the mentality, though.
Right.
We're mining this stuff.
Right.
And we're gonna. Yeah. See, that's part of the whole same big picture,
Or my favorite is we got to throw it away and start with fresh soil. We need to do that because you want it fresh. So
Yeah, that's
that's
not true either.
I know.
When I was at the research farm in Berlin, Germany, at Humboldt University, one of the researchers was doing tests on just exactly that, reusing media. Is that an issue? Is it a problem? So they had this big study on where they were reusing media versus throwing it away, and like how many crops could they get? What problems would they have? No, they figured it out to where they could do that, no problem.
Yeah.
So again, it's about education. It's marketing. Who's marketing stronger? Yeah.
Yeah. Some dumb luck is a good name for a fertilizer.
Because, you can make people believe just about anything. I mean, look at the world today. I mean, look at the world for forever. I mean, you can make people believe in you name it. They'll go for it. What they don't go for is science, because that's like heresy.
I know. Oh, absolutely. No. Science is verboten.
Yeah.
In this cannabis scene, forget it. Verboten. I mean, silliness like neem will kill you. Neem will cause cancers. It will cause brain issues. It causes the list. One thing in the cannabis, the easiest way to sell against it is to humanize something and then describe it in those terms that have nothing to do with the actual material. Like, for example, how is it that the human race has been using seaweed as a farm material, agricultural material, going back millennia? But now it's said, no, you can't do it. It causes, there's some gibberellic acid in there and terms they don't even know. Just, throw out, keep throwing out the bullshit. And to make a claim that somehow neem is more dangerous to the human health
well, they make that
Roundup. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's the argument is, and the more BS you get, then the more you know that your product is actually something that you probably want to use because of the amount of
bottom line, if you have to sell your product by downgrading and bad mouthing other people's product, you probably don't have a very good product.
Right.
That's probably your only way, your only path,
Right.
And that's how it works for sure. I know. But I mean, what did they used to say about pot, about smoking pot? I mean, you look at reefer madness. I mean, one puff and you just go loony, you grab a knife and go attack people and, it kills you, it destroys you. So, I mean, discrediting things and lying about them, that's the approach. That's the typical approach. So you don't like it, it's bad, it's dangerous. It's and some of those kind of people we don't like use it particularly. But so it's always going to be dangerous, and you don't want to take that because that's dangerous. You should just stick it out with the COVID and don't take any of the known based on science. Things that you go listen to the news and they'll tell you what's good and bad. You don't want to take a horse farmer. We're not a horse. See that whole thing. I mean, and that's all misinformation that's directed, for a reason. There's reasons behind all that. Discredit, what really works. So you can push in your, the money punch.
When I first started using,
as long as people understand that, if they start to understand that, it's not going to work anymore.
Right.
See?
When I first started using your products, I had to buy it through you. You didn't have this wonderful distribution system, and you didn't have like Jeremy at Billisoy and all these other wonderful outlets. And so the day that I walked into Concentrates, and I saw your products there, I just did a yippee skippy, because because I live real close to there, I could just go over and buy it and, use it. And yeah, 5-gallon jugs of the acid, the humic, fulvic acid, and then the 50-pound bags of the humic acid. So I've been a good supporter of, your science and your everything. I've been a loyal advocate. How's that of using the bioegg
Definitely
products?
appreciate that. All the support we can get. It's been a struggle against the state regulators and the competitors. I'm telling you,
Dr. Faust,
you just can't win.
You've been working on some silica microbes and some silica products. You want to tell us about that? Because I'm real excited to learn more about that.
Yeah, that kind of, it works too, by the way. Yeah, well, see, I've been working with this silica problem for a long time. I mean, since I was in Hawaii, and we were testing different lava flows, which are, some of them are really high in silicic acid, but all kinds of things and what works. And I know what works. What I used to get out of Utah, out of a fumarole deposit that was really high in silicic acid and sulfur, but we couldn't get that anymore. I mean, we used to reclaim land with that product in Idaho, but yeah, so now it's a different ballgame entirely. So what we're doing, the problem with it's different in soils than it is in hydroponics. In hydroponics, it's hard to keep silica in the right ppm of silicic acid for optimum plant growth. And it is crucial because it has a lot to do with plant and insect, plant disease resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem always was we had a good product. We still do. We have a good silicic acid product, but you put it into hydroponic media, even if you're really careful, and all of them are like this. They're salts of some sort or acids. So they tend to combine. So pretty quick, they tie up. You might even see a milky, turns the thing milk. Okay, so, but how do we get, and it's crucial. Silica is really crucial. So how do you get that into the plant past all the other salts and all the things that are reactive? And so that's when we got working with a company that really did their homework. And we have a nano-sized silica that has a special suspending agent. And some of these nano products are actually produced by microbial activity. It's unique in terms of how they produce the nanoparticles. And then knowing that they are nanoparticles by using electron microscopes, because then you can measure down to micron, submicron sizes. So that's the real criteria. Is it really micron? Is it really a nanoparticle? Well, because nanoparticles can be directly taken up by plant roots. See, and then the plant, once it's safely in the plant, then the enzyme systems within the plant and organic acids with the help of fulvic acid, which it takes up from the soil, process that nanoparticle, and then it becomes the monosilicic acid that the cells need. It's a cellular need, and cell wall, cell membrane, leaf surface become plated essentially with opal, which is what the silicic acid turns into in the plant. But yeah, so the trick is getting into the plant. So yeah, our new Bio Super Cell, I think I just saw it go by, is the product that's doing that. And our actual research on cannabis was spectacular. I think I showed pictures last time, but I have the research paper we did on that and the pictures and everything. And it's just remarkable. I might be able to find it even, but so that took a long time for science to get to that point, to where we understood what was going on with nanoparticles and how to produce them microbially with microbes. Okay. And that's the Bio Super Cell. So it's good in soils or foliar even. I mean, it'll be absorbed, but but it's specifically a really good deal for hydroponics. If you're growing cannabis in hydroponics, and you don't have so much of falling down, like whether it's wheat or whatever the crop is, or cannabis or hemp, you have a strong stem. We have silica. That's why the plants that are most responsive to silica out there in the world, one of them is sugarcane, because otherwise the whole goddamn field will blow over, lay flat. See, so silica in rice is the other one. Rice and sugarcane are big responders, right? So anything with a big stalk or a lot of stalk to it, it's crucial to it. Otherwise the plant's using all its energy just trying to fix the damage every time it's, the wind blows, and the stress is behind all that. So that's a crucial missing link that everybody ought to take a look at, is our BioAg Supersil. And I would show the pictures. We did a whole summer. Well, we've been doing this for a couple of years with that product, but we did the actual testing work out here. And I was kind of amazed myself at, but really when you find the missing links and you can fix them, come up with the answer. I mean, we don't know what the genetic potential is. I mean, a lot of these plants, I've sure seen some monster plants though. I've seen some monster plants. And so we're using the silica, making sure we got the silica nutrition going. And then we're making sure that we have the right microbes in the root system to be the intermediaries between the minerals in the soil and the plant roots and the cells, really. I should say plant roots. It's really cells. So the whole thing is about cells. So we have those microbes. We have the microbes now. And
how would I incorporate that into the vermiculture cycle? So I take material and then do a thermophilic and then a mesophilic, about 9 months curing, to use a layperson's term, and then go run it through the worm bins, which is another several months. At what point would I want to add a silica source like you're describing to that in that process?
Well, in an earthworm casting situation, that's an interesting question, because when they do a lot of testing, we do extracts from earthworm castings, right? Because it's another source of humic substances and plant growth compounds. And it's just about, so it's pretty active. So I would suspect really that good vermicompost is going to be already high in silica.
Okay.
Thank you. Silicate.
All right.
If you use it in the normal way, but if you use it, as a media, of course, you wouldn't be using it as a media for hydroponics.
No,
necessarily. I don't think.
No,
but in the soil, I think you're good. See, the soil is a different ball game. Like when they test for silica, you have to actually take soil and mix the silica with it. It's tricky analysis, and it has to incubate in the soil, and then you can test the soil because it's so tied in, it's so involved with microbial activity in the forms. It's so transitional. It's so amorphous, So it's converting back and around. It's just, silicon dioxide is sand, right? So you have everything from sand on up, a whole range of compounds. I mean, I think probably in other planets there's, silicon life forms. Like we're a carbon form, and it's been suggested that there's probably silicon forms.
And I'll say that you wrote years ago and had it at your webpage for a long time was on colloidal minerals, and I downloaded that, and I passed that at least 300 copies around to people. Quit using azomite, quit using bentonite, quit using zeolite in your soils. I know it sounds groovy and it's all cool, but for example, the azomite, what's the real name of that? That's a brand name. It's a Montraclay.
Yeah, well, it's sort of, to me, it's a gypsum. It's like a low grade form of gypsum that has a lot of silicates, maybe feldspar, something like that. It's like it's a mineral deposit, but I always thought of it as sort of a middle grade gypsum. You know, it's like somewhere between the formation of gypsum and something else.
Right.
You know, it's got, so the effect of a lot of those things is through the silicon. The reason they work.
And in France, where it was discovered, the one that Azomite is, that's the Brenning, but they've been making the beehive ovens, bread ovens, for 600-700 years. And while it may be a wonderful ceramic for making an oven, I'm kind of conflicted. Like, so how does that play into adding it to a soil? So I just stick with basalt rock dust. And
basalt rock dust is the highest source of silica, but you need the microbial activity going on to make useful. Let's see.
And I use the Cascade, and I had the opportunity to speak to one of the people that were involved in the formation of that company, Cascade, and he had worked for the U.S. Geological Service his like 40 years when he retired. So he spent almost 2 hours with me explaining volcanoes, because that's not my area of expertise, and that Hawaii or the Northwest had some of the best basalt, and it had to do with its hardness. Does that make sense to you, that he would make a statement like that?
Well, yeah. I mean, if in Hawaii we got several names for lava, Pahoehoe and Ai. It's about how quick they cooled, quick versus slow.
Right,
so the hard, dense stuff, you know, is kind of hard to work with. But that that stuff on the surface, that's, you know, that's kind of friable, and that's what we actually plant crops in that stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can take a lava flow, and in 150 years, you're going to have a 150-foot rainforest.
Right.
See, now that nobody's helping. Nobody's helping. See, that's also one of my examples of what happens in nature with just organic matter and silicates and rock minerals. You know, with just leave it alone, and in the right environment, you know, you'll have a 6 feet of organic rich mineral soil on top of a lava rock, and that's what I observed.
Right.
And every stage in between, depending how old that lava flow is. I mean, so yeah, that's the mineral source for sure. Yeah. So without volcanoes, you don't have very good ground. I mean, it's not, you know, it's depleted. It's one of the two ways that it gets remineralized. It's either going to be from a volcano, or it's going to be from flooding, like in the Nile River, or like southern Idaho, it's going to be dust that got blown in from China and deposited. Somebody else's dirt, somebody else's soil from their own, you know, bad soil management. So yeah, so civilizations go away based on some of that stuff. You know, of course, obviously a volcano, you're going to go away.
Yeah.
But you know, if you can, it's just like Mount Vesuvius in Italy and Pompeii. I mean, they were tremendous. Or right now, there's a volcano going off in the Canary Islands, and they're farming. I mean, just like Martinique or in the Caribbean, all those places are really rich agricultural places. The flanks of those volcanoes.
Right.
Whether it's in South America, El Salvador, Guatemala, wherever it is, Ecuador, you know, wherever you have volcanoes, you can grow stuff. But it goes through this transition. You know, it takes a lot of time and a lot of organic matter and microbes and minerals, that big mix. You know, and then earthworms get into the whole thing, and that happens. And then we come along and you know, deplete this. The Hawaiians didn't. The Hawaiians knew how to maintain. They knew how to maintain, but I think because they had learned the hard way, possibly in island that they were in before.
Island is the Polynesians killing too many trees and then going to war with each other over it. Isn't that the story of East? kind of basically what we're doing to the planet, but on a smaller scale.
Yeah. Yeah, islands is a good example of a planet. It's like you're isolated in space, like an island in the ocean. And so you have limited resources. There's a ratio between how many people you can have and how many trees you have. That's basic tropical agriculture. I mean, eventually slash and burn, you're done at some point in that.
Well, I got one for you. So I've been promoting the use of malted grains for several years. Barley, because we grow good barley here in Oregon, over in Eastern Oregon, has some of the highest enzyme levels for beer brewing. So that's what I started using. Now I find out, you ready for this? You'll love this.
No, you're making me want to go grab a beer, actually.
Yeah. But did you know that if you add that to your soil, that you'll increase the microbial colonies to the point where they collapse? They're just spent. Think of an orgy and everybody laying around it. Yeah, you didn't know that? Yeah, so be careful when you
the high energy source. Alcohol, sugars, you can produce organic acids that sterilizes the wine or the beer or the soil. And people don't understand. They say, what if I put sugar on the soil? Isn't that good? Or molasses? And I said, what do they use to make alcohol? And what happens in the soil? I mean, yeast is the first thing that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, and that sugar is going to turn into that vinegar.
But is that
alcohol.
richer? Is that rich or what? You want to limit the amount of microbes in your soil, otherwise you'll have microbial collapse. That's the exact term, microbial collapse.
It's that same thing. It's a population, and that's population dynamics, and that's like that's how fermentation works. They get to a point where the numbers are so high, they create wastes, and they use up the energy source, and then they collapse, and then the whole population.
Right.
Because that's a monoculture. That's a monoculture.
Right.
See.
Yeah.
But if in a soil isn't a monoculture,
but
it's really fungal too. That's why we want to convert soils to fungal dominance away from bacterial dominance.
On that note,
the microbial collapse is a joke that's not an actual thing.
But actually, it is. The person who has promoted that has gone on several so-called cannabis science programs, has spewed this over and over and over and over. And now it's become the mantra of here, buy my product, buy my product. And I think what I was trying to explain ask with Dr. Faust, and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but the more criticism you take on your methods, then you can be assured that you're hitting somebody in the pocketbook. Okay, because that's just the way it is. If I want you to buy something like an overpriced compost tea brewer, all right, then what I need to do is make sure that you feel like I'm not going to have a good enough crop unless I buy this thing from you. And to that end, the more misinformation you can throw out there and get people concerned, well, I heard, somebody told me, I read online, that's how you end up with silliness like basalt's going to cause, it's got heavy metals and it's going to cause your crops to collapse. And, it's insane. It's insane. I mean, it's like going
it goes back. There's vampires in the woods, and only I can protect you from those vampires.
That's right.
And I have this special herbal,
talisman,
talisman.
Yeah.
Listen to me.
Yeah.
Nothing changes.
No,
nothing changes. Just style.
And then you get them stoned on some decent weed. And now they're open to anything you tell them. Really? That's all you got to do? That's all you got to do, man. Just take this stuff, mix it in the water, and dump it on your plants, and you'll achieve, 300% yield. Okay. And if you don't get that, then they come back and say, well, yeah, right. Yeah. What do you mean? What's sustainable agriculture? What does that even mean? To get that. I mix my soil fresh every cycle. Good for you. So you go pick up a pallet of bags of crap from, a nursery supply house and start hitting it. Make sure you get that dolomite lime because you want to get the magnesium for those magnesium hungry plants, right? So, I mean, the whole charade in fertilizer companies like Herman Miller, and when you're on that level, you can imagine the amount of money that goes into marketing for an organization that large. And then it's filtered down into the cannabis scene. We repack it, we rebadge it, we give it another name, give it some powers that don't exist on this planet, and then just push the hell out of it. That's what I see.
Well,
and so,
Oh, that is how it's been for quite a while. I hope that my company will be changing that.
I hope so too. Yeah, because
I'm promoting the another way. I'm definitely promoting well, I've always been the alternative.
Yes,
but right now,
absolutely,
we're aiming, we're focusing it down. Specifically to cannabis, just because, like you say, I mean, actually people are more open. It's also kind of a good thing. So, I mean, if people are a little more open, then they're, they can learn to learn the difference, and I think a lot of the younger generation know the difference between BS and what the truth is, or they, I don't know. They're wising up. I mean, they got the internet. You can look things up. So, I think we can.
Well, I know one thing. There's a lot of Coot's mixed soil out there that I had nothing to do with, and they on their own read things online and decided I'm going to mix my own soil. Let's see what happens. And to this day, I've never received one, other than somebody I know to be a fraud, that said, "Oh my God, it was the worst crop I ever had. Oh my God, I got to go back to fill in the blank, some silly nuke program." So I tell them,
that's really how it ends up.
Yeah.
Find out the world's not going to end.
Yeah. I just tell them use Coot's newts, but you don't buy them from me. I'll tell you where to buy them at the best price. Like your products, I tell people, hey, go to concentrates. Buy it in bulk. It's not going anywhere. In fact, I called your office many years ago and I asked about the shelf life of the fulvic acid. And you were kind enough to take the time to explain it to me that, this is I don't want to give away any secrets, but a fermented product. So basically it had no shelf life. I mean, it was like, it would last for years and years and years and years, whatever I'm trying to say. So that's why I, like I said before, I tell people at the beginning of the season, you get a 5-gallon bucket or get a 5-gallon pail, and of that, get a 50-pound bag of the humic acid and some VAM of the in TM7. I'm a real big promoter of your TM7 because those trace minerals are chelated with the fulvic acid, if I understand the entry on the materials page at your website correctly.
Oh yeah, because that is the natural mechanism in nature. It's going to be humic substances, and they have a huge role in chelation of trace elements and transport of trace elements across the cell membrane and all that. Again, and then TM7 is the 7 trace elements that are mostly deficient. That are the limiting factors in most conditions. Not
Absolutely.
all. We make a special one. We make them for different areas too. Like we make a different one for Colorado. There's a little bit different scenario.
Right.
Yeah. And so they're the big missing links. And so this chelation, you got to buy a EDTA chelate and all that. No, that's not how it's done. So that's all that is. It's humic acids that are processed with trace elements in the whole process. It's a cheap version of chelated trace element. And it has everything. It's got cobalt, molybdenum, and vanadium, things like that you don't normally think about.
Well, the big one in potting soils, especially with those that are core based, is the complete and utter absence of sulfur. And that's why you will read online core growers say, well, you know, I'm just not getting the aroma. I'm not getting the flavors. Well, without sulfur, isn't that like at the base of most metabolic functions on this planet? Is sulfur?
It's totally crucial. It's a part of an essential amino acid.
Okay.
Sulfur containing amino acid. Tryptophan. I forget. But yeah, sulfur was the big deal. Like when I worked in Montana and Idaho, I mean, they were so sulfur deficient that you could put a product I sold was called sulfur soil, and it was like 25% sulfur, and it had about 13% silica, silicic acid, and then trace elements and iron. And that literally turned some of those farms around, because it was classic sulfur deficiency, you know, and you're going to see that, you know, and
yes.
Sulfur is just as important or more important to plants than phosphorus.
Right.
So sulfur is a major limiting factor in plant growth.
Well,
and
I'd like to ask you a
nutrition.
question on that subject. So traditionally, I've used gypsum as a source of sulfur. Would I be better off to use a sulfur oxide, like the old burning sulfur they used to use for getting rid of powdery mildew? You know, smell up your house.
Yeah.
But I mean the raw material, not burning it. I just mean the raw material.
Yeah, well, you can. Well, the sulfur is another one of these things that's difficult, like silica. Now, so you can use what they call elemental sulfur if it's finely ground. It's really, but it has to be, believe it or not, for sulfur like that, elemental yellow sulfur, it has to be broken down by something called thiobacillus thiooxidans. So it's a soil bacteria that's energy source is sulfur. Okay, so that bacteria reduces that sulfur to sulfuric acid, and then sulfate, and then plants can take it up. But elemental sulfur by itself is insoluble, and so no benefit to plants. And then gypsum is, because it's sulfate, it's calcium sulfate, but in a wet soil it can revert back to sulfur, elemental. Micronized form, and then microbes break it down. Sulfur is really complex. It's really complex, but microbes are totally like crucial to that whole thing.
Sure.
Because of that one, and in some places in the world, they'll actually inoculate sulfur with the thiobacillus thiooxidants, and even rock phosphate with sulfur. And then this bacillus that eats the sulfur, and then another one that eats the phosphorus. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, we talked about that earlier, about how other places in the world are way ahead of us on all this stuff. Yeah, and that's true, and because all this information comes from other places, because we're just the industrial model. But yeah, where it counts, you know, they're looking at things like sulfur, and then let's take sulfur and mix it with bacteria, and let's, you know, use a fungus to stimulate, you know, nitrogen fixation or phosphate release and all that. Because of the world's cheapest chemists, it's basically what Cuba did, because they got cut off from buying fertilizers and chemicals, and they're smart enough people that they put together, you know, their own biological products. And, you know, I mean, they're not a shining example of agricultural success, but there's other reasons for that. But, you know, the bottom line is we could make it work that way. And whether that's cannabis or whatever it is, you basically, you would change the world.
If you wouldn't mind, I think it would be beneficial to cannabis growers in particular. Could you explain the nitrification benefits, or not benefits, but the nitrification process that neem brings to the soil? because that is one of the most misunderstood aspects of neem is the nitrification, which you also find in the fungi.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is it's a denitrification inhibitor. Okay.
Right.
So,
right.
for instance, let's put, you have something that's got a high nitrogen source in it. It doesn't matter whether it's natural or whether it's urea. Urea is natural, but it's a synthetic too. What ends up happening is, again, it goes to microbes. See, and most of these people are chemists, and they don't get all this. So
right.
that urea, whether it's urine or whether it's like chemical urea, is broken down by ammonifying bacteria that create ammonia. They take urea, they break it apart, and urea is a combination of air and ammonia, so it reverts back to ammonia. Then there's bacteria called nitrifying bacteria, and right. They take that ammonia, which is fixed in the soil. It doesn't leach because it's part of the soil colloid. And so these microbes break it down into nitrates, which does leach in a good rain. And that's your soluble nitrate, which plants take up. They also take up ammonia. See, so so that's nitrification. So if you use neem as a nitrification inhibitor, it reduces the bacteria that cause convert from ammonia to nitrate. And so you save that nitrogen that's being produced by whatever. It can be from nitrogen fixation too, by legumes, or free living soil microbes are fixing nitrogen. But the nitrifying bacteria are nitrifying it into a soluble form, which is kind of good and kind of bad because, it can be leached rapidly. And the ammonia can't. It fixes as part of the colloid. So the neem stops that a lot. So does the humic acid. Stops that. It doesn't stop it completely, but it stops. So you save a pretty big percentage of the nitrogen, like 35, 40, maybe higher percent. Yeah. And so to coat fertilizers with neem, you see, and I was bringing some stuff in from India. It was like that, where they use
right.
neem oil and they coated these particles. But you mix that with like regular fertilizer or organic fertilizer, and it's one of the things. It's a nitrification inhibitor. Yeah, that's a good thing, especially in a rainy, hot environment where that can happen so fast that you put the nitrogen on and it's going to be leached away in a few days. So that's a big part of it. And that's what's really a good thing about it. And that's not all. There's other things, as you know. The insect growth regulation effect does seem to stimulate a range of things, like especially earthworms. And there seems to be some benefits in there too.
Yes.
It's hard to say why exactly. I'm sure somebody has worked on that.
Well, there's one number for you that, and this came from the book, the German entomologist. We'll call him Dr. S because there's no way I'm going to be able to pronounce it. That the neem, he goes through excruciating detail in the book, all the different forms of just as a directed. But it took, he cites in there that it took Indian chemist 18 years to figure out not the formula, but the structure, the molecular structure of just as a directed, which is, as you know, there's like 360 something compounds in neem, and about 22 are considered important by cannabis crowd, the pesticide and the function side. But that's just a part of it. There's the antiviral, and just a whole bunch of things. And all I know is that when I started using neem, I guess 15 years ago, I quit having all these problems with stuff flying out of my soil like, gnats and I don't know which one's which, but I know I don't sit there and swat in front of my face.
Definitely fungus gnats. Yeah, they're definitely controlled.
Right.
So this is a question I would love to know because I've never had a chance to actually ask somebody this. What can neem treat or solve that Bavaria bassiana or similar products cannot?
Well, it's two different modes of action there. I like to use the soil applied neem products because they act as a systemic. They move it up. But neem doesn't control everything for sure in terms of insects. Because it's an insect growth regulator. It breaks the cycle. So if an insect, it can't reach maturity. So it's not like a quick knockdown. See, now if you have leaf feeding pests, some pretty nasty ones out there. Fungal entomophagous fungi, can control them. And it's really a devastating, really incredible too. So yeah, Bavaria bassiana and some of those things, you'd go after like bigger stuff with that, but you have to have the right conditions for it. Whereas the neem is going to be like little stuff, like psyllids and maybe aphids and thrips, things where you can break their life cycle, things like that. But it's not going to hold back, active leaf feeders. There's a whole range of them. And there's a whole range of biopesticides. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big enough arsenal there that we definitely wouldn't need chemical pesticides. There's no question about that. Yeah. And I have about 10 or 12 different cultures on hand, but the regulatory capture on that is difficult, see, because you have these products like Bavaria, bassiana, a whole range of things. There is a huge range. And, you got registration, you got EPA, you got all that. So it's what they call regulatory capture. So they've captured that industry. The petrochemical people have captured the regulation part of, pesticides. And so they can keep those things out. So, yeah, I found that some of the fungal pathogens are just incredibly effective, and research that I've done that was never utilized commercially because it's too good. It's just too good. Yeah. And you can't patent it. Oh, shit.
So on a slightly separate note, what are some of the best, we have two amazing organic growers here with Coot and Dr. Faust. What are some of the most beneficial organic inputs? I know both of you are a huge fan of kelp extract. Maybe that's a good place to start. Is there any others that you guys think are highly beneficial to people? I know Dr. Faust, you're much more of a specialist with the Humics and Fulvics, but what are some of the other different things that maybe you both agree on as far as organic inputs?
The main thing you want to use is something you can get cheap close. It's not something, well, I'm going to go find the ideal thing, but I have to ship it in from 2,000, 5,000 miles away. It's what you can source locally that, that is practical. And I found interesting things around here in Oregon, that you can get. So that's the rule of thumb, because, it's got to be something that, because Holland's the biggest problem, biggest cost. So you got to get like what you can get. Like around here, you can get like mint compost, you can get municipal compost, you can get a range of stuff. I like slag from steel company, from a steel mill in McMinnville. I like that slag a lot. It's because it works perfectly for the soil conditions we have here. I need that slag It's like artificial lava, you know, except they use calcium, they use limestone.
Right.
So it's like limestone lava. And that's what the ground needs around here. I mean, we need to bring the pH up, and we need the calcium big time. So it's knowing what you need and then finding a local cheap source that they consider something you throw away or sell cheap. And there's a range of things out there. But then you have the problem of hauling. Yeah, we have that same problem. I mean, finding somebody that'll haul it, you know.
Yes.
But the compost, there's good sources of compost out here, or what I call crude compost, you know, or semi-compost. And then, yeah, there's earthworm castings too.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's, you know, there's bark, and you know, there's fish waste. There's, of course, alfalfa.
I'm just gonna say that's mine. Is the old name going back? And I'm old, so it really goes back a long time. But it was referred to at one time as field kill, and it's one of the best of the accumulators, and it's cheap. I mean, the organic stuff is under what, 18 cents a pound. When I get 50 pounds from a farm store, organic, which is getting more and more difficult because a whole bunch of things that went on the whole alfalfa segment. But at least you can get non-sprayed, non-GMO, and it's cheap. I mean, really cheap. So I added my worm, but I don't bury it. I don't want to compost. I put it on top. I don't want to put a layer of alfalfa and then stack if a worm bin and then pile material on it, because you're going to heat it up. I'm not trying to kill worms. So I found that by just putting it on as top dressing and let the microbes basically be constructed, and then it's going to get pulled down into the material. But that's an incredible range of 83 elements in the right balance. I mean, for cheap money.
So. Well, there's a lot you can do. It's just a lot of work. That's the only thing.
Sure.
But utilizing what's already out there. I mean, when I think about the things that are out here in Willamette Valley, I mean, even the city of Salem was coming out with these big vacuum trucks, big semis, you know, I think 6,000 gallons, and they'd spread sewage sludge on your land for free. You know, it smells for a while. You know?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's ample wastes, you know, that's the heck of it. See, especially in the wood product industry. And so that's where biodynamics comes in, because what you're creating there is a compost, and you can blend, you know, there's lots of ways of blending that, but you're creating something. See, that I didn't really realize it, because you're thinking like bags and pounds, you know, bins and bushels.
All right.
But really what you're doing with biodynamic compost, you know, in many cases, is you're inoculating the soil. You're inoculating. It's like an inoculant. You start with a starter, microbes, and you go through the whole thing. And bottom line, you're inoculating the soil with microbes. And you're adding a whole bunch of, or maybe not so much, organic matter. So, you know, once you got the right microbes and you got something for them to eat, then that's pretty much the situation. Like in ancient Hawaii, and probably, well, a lot of places, but specifically in Hawaii, I know for sure, their only fertilizer they used, because manure was kapu, which means, you know, it's forbidden. So they didn't use manure. But they used leaves. So they were using nothing but leaves, which they gather from the trees. They send kids up the trees and pull down the leaves. It's like the kikuyu nut, which is a nitrogen fixing tree that produces these oil nuts. They call it candle nut. And then mango and whatever, hard leaf. So just using leaves for fertilizer, and then tromping them into the mud with your feet, because they had no tools. And then using pigs to churn it all up after you take a crop, you know, so doing that for 10,000 years. Okay. And then, So a lot of these ancient cultures were using leaves one way or the other in some way. Either they were harvesting muck from swamps at the end, like in the Maya world, when they kind of depleted everything else. They were harvesting muck in the swamp for fertilizers. But
I selfishly, I'd like your advice and help on something that you said earlier this evening. I want to make sure I understood it. So my method is to take animal manure, usually dairy solids, and do a thermophilic, just to comply with state advice or regulations, whatever. And then do about an 8 to 12 month mesophilic cycle for adding high density materials, and turning all that. So, and then running it through the worm bin. Did I understand you correct that if a person is going through that the humic level in that worm casting is going to be at a high, I don't use the word high, but be at a sustainable rate for the plants? Did I understand that correctly?
yeah, it's possible. Yeah, if you use enough. And I knew organic farmers that did use enough. They would grow greens, lettuce, and basil and stuff like that. And then they trim that. And then they have these they have rabbits. They have these rabbit hutches.
Yeah.
And they throw all the trimmings. And then they have the worm beds underneath the rabbit hutch.
Yes, right.
So the rabbit shit's going down there.
Right.
And the earthworms were in there.
Yeah.
And actually, I didn't have rabbits, but I had a similar earthworm bed arrangement where I threw all the wastes, and then you shovel out from the bottom, and you get this really rich black humus, right?
Right.
I mean, that's like some of the best natural fertilizer there is.
I've tried to explain it, but I've not done a good job. So, yeah.
It starts with waste. It's just how you process it through rabbits or sheep and worms and microbes. So it's this whole, the whole evolutionary.
But in the cannabis world, see, we buy our microbes in a bottle. We don't want to get our hands dirty. We just want to go pack up this bottle, and as long as it says microbes on the label, and we follow the mix and pour recipe, then we'll be on our way to dank them. We'll have wonderful plants.
What we're doing now is, the problem with bacteria in a bottle. Okay, it's not viable. They'll get a shot from some of the PGRs produced in the media, but. So we use fungals. Like right now, we're working with a product, an organism called Serendipia indica, and it's a fungus that the world is looking at. The research is being done all over the world on this. I'm looking at a paper right now. It says the free living stage growth conditions of the endophytic fungus Serendipia indica may regulate its potential as plant growth promoting microbe. So this particular microbe is of big interest all over the world. It's a non-obligate endophytic fungus and generally a plant growth and defense promoter with high potential to be used in agriculture. I'm reading from a scientific paper here.
Sure.
So anyway, this is the one we're working with, and we planted a fair amount of crops with it this year on our test farm. And we're providing it in a base of peat, milled natural hypnum peat, along with humic acid. See, so the idea is, no, we're not putting it in a bottle because fungi drown. They drown in the bottle.
I know.
That's not good.
Isn't hypnum peat? Isn't that the one that was like the perfect pH is 7? It came out of the upper Midwest. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. Well, it comes out of the Cascades, North Cascades.
Okay.
So it's close. It's a close deposit. It's not like far away.
Right.
So so you give it the fungi a home to live in, in the right conditions and stuff like that. So the trick is in the formulation. And so ours will be something that we can register, and it will be guaranteed, and we'll say how many, whatever propagules or whatever they require us to say, so that we can maintain quality on it. But this is something that the rest of the world knows a lot about, and they don't know about anything about it here. And so we're going to have a bacterial, well, it's a fungal product. Like I say, bacteria, you can't sort of count on that to happen, the way you want it. But with fungi, you kind of can. It's a different ballgame. It's something you can inoculate. It's a very different ballgame entirely. And we can monitor these microorganisms, these fungi. We can easily monitor them with DNA PCR magnification, because we know we buy the cultures from government agencies, and they give you the DNA sequence. So you can definitely, rapidly, accurately, identify what you've got. So you know what you've got, and you know what it'll do, and you give it the right place, the right media, and you get that on the ground. And the roots are like a magnet for it.
Right.
See?
Let me ask you a question about, I grow culinary / medicinal mushrooms, lion's mane, in particular, maitake, what have you. Those fruiting blocks, after it's spent, after the fruit's been harvested, I've been taking the blocks and busting them up and then mixing that in with thermophilic compost. Do you see a benefit there?
Well, yeah, there's a lot, there's a big story behind all that, actually. I mean, using what we call spent media of what we call white rot fungi. Okay, and so what you end up with is something that's a lot higher in nitrogen or protein than you started with. Now, here's what I've done. This is just one way of dealing with it. And since we're talking about aquaponics, I'll go into it a little bit. Bottom line, once the media has been, utilized by mushrooms, you get the fruiting bodies and all that.
Right.
It's converted all the cellulose and all that stuff to sugars, simple sugars, polysaccharides, and proteins, amino acids, really. So that can be that is an excellent fish feed. Okay. Like from oyster mushroom or some of these. Sure. And that's been work that's been done. And actually I've done it. And especially for tilapia. So the spent media can be run through fish.
Wow.
Yeah. Or cattle for that matter. I mean, there's a lot of things that'll eat it. But we found that tilapia really loves it. If you just bust it up and throw it on top of a pond, an aquaculture, where there's tilapia, it is like the piranha, they're just tearing it apart at the surface. So, that's something you can make a pelleted fish feed out of, out of cheap local waste material.
Right.
So you get the mushroom crop first, and then you then you feed it. Or you can just go and add it to the soil, and it's going to feed the earthworms. So
okay,
it's just
good.
It's
I
critter
saw a
food
benefit,
at that
but
point.
Yeah.
Once it's digested, something that's not fish can't really eat straw or woody wastes or what they call lignocellulosic waste very well. But once the fungi take it apart, then it's a different ballgame. See, and that's the same thing, earthworms or any other critters out there. So that's a very valuable soil amendment.
You. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely is. And as far as fish feed, it's the future. Is fungal biomass conversion to produce cheap feeds instead of saying feeding fish,
Well,
soybeans, and all that kind of stuff. See,
let me run the recipe. It's real simple. I didn't invent this, but somebody did, and it's called the Master's Mix for growing wood mushrooms. And it's 50 by volume, 50% hardwood pellets, and then 50% of the soybean husk pellets that are used, like 82% cellulose. And they feed them to cattle to keep them regular, to keep their bowel digestive system clean. So that's what you mix to grow the mushrooms on. So when it's that's what the mycelium's growing on. So that's what you're starting with, wood and cellulose. And then I got corrected by an expert in the weed scene that bacteria are the ones that destroy and deconstruct wood. Did you know that? And cellulose, not fungi, it's bacteria. So I had it all wrong. Yeah, I know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You can learn some really interesting things hanging around the cannabis scene.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, they got that one a little mixed up.
Yeah, do you think? Yeah, I know. What can you do?
Yeah,
Sometimes you're sitting there going, why am I talking to you? I mean, it's like some of these.
Well, see, the soybean, the oils, they love oils. I mean, you use cellulose and then something that's got oils in it, like cottonseed oil, soybean, anything, they get energy. That's an big energy source, is oils to fungi, specific fungi that really lights them up, and then they can go to town on the cellulose. So,
and that explains the benefit of neem, because you're dealing with omega-3, 6, and 9. Yeah, okay, now I get it. Thank you. Now it all makes sense.
Oh boy, fungi love oils.
The bell went off, and now I get it. Okay.
And they can convert that to things that are,
So that explains the mycelium on top of my soil. When I use neem, a few days later, I'll get a nice layer of okay, that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Yeah, oil, like one of my favorite organic fertilizers, if I can get it, well, it would be neem if I had it, because I used to bring in the neem cake. But the other thing is cottonseed meal, really like cottonseed meal as an organic fertilizer, because it's got the oils, it's about 5 something like that, or 5.25, 5.52, I don't know. But cottonseed meal is a good one for the same reason.
Right.
You got the oils, and mix that with cellulose, you got something.
Well, I'll say one thing for sure.
I think that's the future, really.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you really did organic farmers, agronomists, whatever, a huge favor when you got to a point where you could put it into a big distributor like concentrates. Because if you're a serious, or like a market farmer, what we used to call, remember, truck farming, that was the term, and now we use the term market producers, like the Saturday market folks and all that. And if you're growing here in Oregon, that's where you shop. You're shopping at concentrates. You're not going to grocery stores, that's for sure. So, is that the one? Cool.
Yeah, this is.
Are you familiar with a software called Mendeley out of England? It's a research tool. Think of it as it's called Mendeley, not Mandalay, but with an E, Mendeley. It's open source, it's free, and it searches like JSTOR and these other repositories of papers, and then puts it in a list. And it might be worth your time and trouble. Again, it's free. There's no money for this product. It's used by students, researchers around the world. Mendeley is the name of the software. So it would fit into your research perfectly.
I get a lot of stuff out of research gate.
Yes.
.com.
Right.
And I publish to that too. So
do you remember Skyrus a few years ago? When it was around, Skyrus, it was an acronym. I don't know what it meant, but You didn't get any blogs. You didn't get any, lab sheets from manufacturers. It was strictly peer-reviewed, double-blind studies, SCIRUS, but it went away.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
partially funded by somebody, I don't know, USDA or somebody. And you know how those things are influenced by politics. So this guy's out and now we're going to do it. And this guy's now in, we're not going to do it, that kind of thing. So I don't know why Skyrus ended, but that was, I loved that search engine because you didn't get any crap, nothing from any newt companies or.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is, in the world of science, people put stuff out there. And, so if you read enough papers on a particular subject, things kind of come out, there's kernels of truth appear, and you get deeper and deeper.
Right.
And you can get to it. You can get to it. And that's, of course, that's the whole scientific method versus, okay, so I know a guy who knows a guy who said, this is good,
Yeah, right.
So my approach is I know a guy and here he is, some people in Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal and Brazil, from major universities, and they say that this is, an incredible potential, and here's the scientific paper. The only thing of it is, we don't believe people from Portugal and Brazil.
Yeah, no,
Come
right.
on.
Yeah.
No, was this done at, wherever, U.S. Type ag school, so I don't, to me, it's the world, I'm a citizen of the world and I'm my own soldier. Okay.
Right.
So if I want the truth, I have it here at my fingertips and I can go out in the world and if it's African or Russian or whoever it is, I give them a benefit of the doubt for sure. And there's so much information that all the answers are there. You read enough papers and you distill it into something. They spent millions and a lot of hours and efforts, and I read the papers and then I get something, I do something with it. And that's what we've done with this serendipita. So, well, okay, they did all the base work. Okay, well, we're introducing it to the marketplace. We're producing it. See?
Now,
but I didn't
will you have
millions
this
of dollars
product
doing
at your?
research. These people share the research with me. See, that's a different dynamic than the industrial model where you want to tie stuff up and patch.
Sure. Right.
It's operating spaceship Earth the way it should be operated. And that's the other part. We operate spaceship Earth. It's like a free for all. An insane free for all for gold. As a pilot, for a long time, I kind of see things like that. Operating an aircraft, it's all these different systems that have to interact, and it's no bullshitting around either. It's like you can't violate the rules of physics. That's something you're not going to get away with. So it's the real deal, life and death. And you run it with a system. You have a crew, you have a captain, you make rational decisions, you do careful analysis. But the planet Earth is like a free for all. Let's make weapons, and I'm going to, take over your shit so I can have the glory. So we're not really operating it the way it should be operated. Is the point. No, the question is, how could that happen? Good question. I just saw YouTube last night about the future of robotics and how by 2035 or 2040, robots can be self-replicating.
Yes, I read that too. Yeah. It might be beneficial.
And they're going to be rational. They will be rational.
Exactly.
They're out for their own interests. See, they're not playing all these power trip games, and all this other stuff. So if that ever came true,
Here's my favorite in the weed.
I solved the problem.
I just
Robots don't need food.
In the weed scene, they actually believe this sincerely. They'll fall on their sword arguing it, that they can control and manipulate the production of terpenes, terpenoids, and ketones through fertilizers. I mean, it just shows a complete and total lack of understanding of the role of terpenes and terpenoids. I want lemon. Okay, so you want lemon. That's great. All right. And I can do this because I use this bottle here. Oh, well, what if I want chocolate flavors? Oh, well, you got to get this bottle over here. And it's so absurd. Refuse to look at Chenoweth's work, just refuse to look at it. And this guy is heads up one of the largest research centers in Israel. Full PhD. That doesn't matter. No. I got this stuff from the grocery store right here. It's going to give me my terps. It's insane. And then,
we talked about that quite at length. In fact, that was one of the things that we really bonded over the first time we talked together on Fumi's show. I think it was how it's the microbial diversity of your root zone and your plant tissue that increases your terpene expression, because terpenes are an expression of the plant's immune system and the plant's response to the environment. That's
exactly.
There's no magic.
Exactly.
There's no product.
No.
There's no bottle. It's what environment is that plant exposed to? What microbes is that plant exposed to?
External you used the phrase, and more accurate than what I could come up with, and you said it was external forces or stimuli, and that's spot on. I mean, an insect can land on a plant leaf, and the plant within 15 minutes can convert terpene A into terpene B, because that's what's needed. It's a fluid. It isn't like, okay, we made our pinene, so now we're going to go to sleep. I mean, that's the mentality of the weed grower. Well, if I just get that pinene, I'll get that that lemon thing going on. It's absurd. I mean, just absurd.
And I wanted to also welcome Chad Westport to the show as well. Thanks a lot for joining us, Chad. He's a big proponent of education in cannabis as well.
No worries, man. My pleasure. Thank you for the invite, and thank you, for coming on and dropping some knowledge with me as well. Teach me a little bit about the aquaponics. I just want to jump in here real quick. This is probably going to raise some hairs on the back of the neck, but there's always that classic terpenator. Now, we know that was pretty much phosphorus. How do you guys picture phosphorus playing in the role of terpene production?
Can I address? I've done a lot of work at bad mouthing terpenator for one reason. I read the label. What's in it? Oh, it's sulfate of potash. Yeah. Gee, that's a standard agricultural product that's about $12 for 50 pounds. How did we get to $80 a gallon? That's 99% water. If you want to use terpenator, go get a bag of sulfate of potash. Mix it with the water according to whatever they're the ones who filed the MSDS, not me. I didn't file it. They did. And how can you possibly justify $80 a gallon or whatever the crap costs when I can get a 50-pound bag of it for $12? And if I bought two of them, I might get it down to 10. Right. That kind of thing.
And actually, I meant to say sulfur there. I said phosphorus. I meant sulfur.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's the active agent. I promise you. It isn't the soluble potash. It's the sulfur, the sulfate. But try to explain that to Joe Stoner. Sulfur, that's the stuff we burn to kill fungus in our rooms, isn't it?
Right. Well, because there's so many, things that we do to stress the plant. And, I do not know the terpene synthase genes. I don't know their functions. I don't know the modality of how they work. But I do know that terpenes in nature, cannabis and any other plant, can sometimes be defense mechanisms.
They are.
So by potentially stressing them, or even sulfur as an agent of IPM, would that potentially somehow trigger one of these synthase genes inside of the plants? I'm speculating here, by the way.
Okay. Terpenes and terpenoids and ketones provide a wide range of things. They're pollinator attractors. They're insect repellents. There's a whole bunch of things. It's biology. It's working. The plant is producing these very simple, really start looking at them in terms of their molecular structure and formula, and when you tell people, well, THC, really take a look at it. Now I'm going to get this backwards, but it doesn't really matter. Terpenes and terpenoids, let's just do that one. One of them has an oxygen component and the other one doesn't. The other one's carbon and hydrogen. But I don't remember, but even I've seen botanists get them mixed up. So it's kind of like, you can't really hang your hat on this is a terpene. I guess you can, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of give and take in the botany world of botany. So, but yeah, I mean, some of the things that plants produce, standard is camphor. Do you think you want to explain that to a weed grower? That this one has camphor in it? No, it doesn't. Well, yes, it does.
Not at an easily detectable level for us, but it would.
I don't know, but yeah,
right.
Yeah. I mean, in my view, going back to, I started smoking in 54 years ago. The imports were good because they hadn't been screwed with. Okay, so there's this range of flavors, like in a real Thai stick, not something grown over in Billy Goat Acres here. Well, I think it came from Thai. I'm not sure. It could be. You sure it's not Cambodian? Oh, no, not really. So anyway, you get into that whole, it just annoys me because they're talking people into using this because it's going to give you this result in the flavor. If that were the case, how come we can't produce a tomato that tastes like a tomato using chemicals? Hothouse tomatoes. And here's my analogy on that one. If you look at all the fruits and all the vegetables that are grown in hothouse conditions, you got 5. You got your tomatoes, which don't taste like tomatoes. You've got those horrible bell peppers, the red and the yellow and the orange that don't taste like that. You've got the English cukes, the ones wrapped in plastic. And then butter leaf, because they've got it set up robotic. That head of lettuce never touches human hands until the purchaser buys it and pulls the lid off. So what's common among all those items? Well, they're going to be covered with fat and salt and sugar, condiments and sandwiches. Does it matter whether you can taste the tomato on your Big Mac? No. Does it matter that you can't taste the peppers because you cooked it in a tomato sauce to make some form of Italian? No. So you don't have to have them taste good. They're there for the color. And in the produce department, that's where I came out of. I know this industry back and forth. All that stuff in that store, 5 items dominate 80% of your sales. So when you, as a produce manager, bring in a box of Radicchio, you don't intend to sell it. You use it for color breaks. The habanero chilies, you buy it, they come in a 10-pound box. You're going to throw 9.7 pounds away. That's just a given. It's there for the visuals, and you got the special lighting, light bulbs and color spectrums to really make that stuff pop. And here's one of the saddest parts of the whole produce industry. To this day, in 2021, iceberg lettuce is the main form of lettuce sold at the retail level. As hard as that is to imagine.
It's a wild shame how visual we are as shoppers, because as we all know here, that speaks nothing to the nutritional content of the item that you're picking up, which really is what we're after. I did an agriculture program up in Washington, and one of the main produce distributors in the state is a place called Charlie's Produce. And Yeah, it was awesome. As you know, like a field trip, we went to the main shipping storage warehouse that's in downtown Seattle. Mind blowing how much stuff is in there. But again, it's to your point. Yeah, it's sitting and looking pretty in the vegetable section of the grocery store.
Right. I came out of, in fact, Charlie's is one of our customers.
Oh, cool.
And we sold $2 million a week in produce between Seattle and Portland.
Wow.
And my responsibility was getting the independent contract truckers under the loads. The buyers would hand me the POs. I'd put the loads together, this many pallets on a trailer, you know, chimney block them and going through that whole thing. And yeah, it's a numbers game, numbers. And, but the most profitable produce item impacting most big chains, grocery store chains, bananas. Bananas are set up in a separate, wholly owned subsidiary for tax purposes. There's that much money in it. And what it takes to get that banana to you, the customer, ready, they come in green. You put them in pressurized ripening rooms with ethylene gas. You crank up the gas, you bring them out to the color, and then you move them out to the stores. And the stores order, well, I want a number 3 yellow, a number 4, whatever their setup is. Those ripening rooms are $100,000. Well, now they're more than that, but $150,000 a pop. And you better have, if you want to be serious, you better have 30 to 40 of them because you're running that many bananas. Each room will hold one truckload, which is at 1,080 cases, and each case is 40 pounds. So you just get an idea. I mean, I used to bring in anywhere between 20 and 30 loads a week, just bananas. So
wow.
That's the money. That's where the money is. There's no money in selling kumquats and
no, there's no margins for farmers in the first place.
No, and that's what we've done to cannabis. And in my youth, who made the money? The son of a bitch that grew it. Now it's the distributor, the dispensary, and the growers are sitting there scrambling. They should be the one getting the when in any agriculture. That's where the money should go. It should be to the producer, and not Kroger. My opinion. We might have a chance at some real food. Anyway, I'm an organic terrorist when it comes to produce. I've handled the conventional, the transitional, and the certified organic, and there's a difference. Why is it that when we grow tomatoes in our garden, we go out and we want to find heirloom tomatoes, right? They're not pretty. They got wrinkles on them. They're not perfect. But when we go, the average customer goes in their grocery store, they want that like it was done photocopy. Every tomato looks the same.
Conditioning.
That's conditioning. There you go.
I had a question for Dr. Faust. Which of the different products that you worked with as far as Humic and Fulvic and the silica products and other things, which ones are important kind of at that point of germination and then shortly thereafter? Because there's a lot of debate as to what should be used early on as far as ensuring that the plant gets proper expression of different things. And I know you know a lot about that particular topic, and it's something I was really wanting to ask you about.
Well, yeah. We start out with treating the seed, with a very dilute, like 1 to 200, 1 to 100 full power. And that's the Fulvic because that sets the stage, because that's first cell division. And you can actually enhance it all happens in that first cell division, a lot of it. And so that's crucial. I do other things too. Like I use magnetic treatment. I'll tell you some of my secrets, but that's not real secret. There's been a lot of research done on that in a lot of different seeds, the enhancing with magnetic, fairly low magnetic energy along with fulvic acid. So that's generally what I do. So that's always the first step, and then. And then plants don't need like a whole bunch of fertilizer early on. All you do is increase the salt content, the conductivity, and it just inhibits growth. It's like feeding a man all he can eat on Sunday, and then you got to wait till next Sunday to get your next meal. It doesn't really work that way. The plant just needs a little bite every day. You don't force feed it. Anyway, so yeah. So the research we did, which we published on the hemp anyway, I have that screen up right now, that we found that that if we went, well, we had different sequences, of fulvic long, fulvic short, humic long, humic short. So we different concentrations. We kind of knew what concentration worked. So then it was a matter of, well, like what stages of growth. So the results, you could actually kind of control what the levels of THC and CBD were going to be. I mean, you could affect that direction. You could by how the timing was done. Now, there's other fertilizers involved too in this situation. But bottom line, you could either increase THC or decrease THC. You could increase CBD. Yeah. So you can manipulate what's going on in terms of, and this also includes terpenes and a whole range of things. By what you're doing. Matter of fact, here's a screen. If you want to share this screen, it's work we did with cannabis and a lot of other plants using.
You should be able to just hit share screen.
Yeah, let me see. Share screen. Okay.
I would love for you to tell us more about increasing and decreasing THC and CBD. It's something that I would love to learn more about.
Yeah, well, that's it. And bottom line is, if you're using, see, the way humic acid works is a foliar and also fulvic to a certain extent, to a big extent. It's really well known that it decreases abiotic stress. So that's like too hot, too cold, too dry, not enough fertilizer. Okay, so that's the proven benefits in greenhouses and really out in fields too of fulvic acid. No controversy there. If you got fulvic acid, it really is fulvic acid. That's what it does. It relieves stress, abiotic stress. Okay, well, it turns out that that's great, because if you want to grow CBD, and you have to be below 0.03% THC, because we found that if you go all season with humic or fulvic, you're reducing stress. See, so what ends up happening is that reduces THC, because THC is born of stress. It's the effect of abscisic acid, which is a stress hormone. And if you reduce stress on the crop, it's not gonna produce as much THC. So running out of nutrients towards the end is the ideal, and reduced soil moisture, stress factors. And then my latest experiments is with using blasting it with like red spectrum, ultraviolet out of LEDs, right? See, because I'm trying to duplicate Hawaii and Jamaica, So
that's great.
I'm going to use some really intense light. See, so that's a stressor. Like in Hawaii, we grow under shade cloth because the sun's just too goddamn intense. The UV is a stressor. You get better yield under shade, right? But anyway, so anything that stresses the plant, you can you get to a much higher THC. I can tell you that. And we used to kind of believe that it was like a story, like, well, yeah, you stress it. But now we know it's true. At least I do, based on science and our own research and paper I published. So it's knowing that sequence of what you're trying to do. You're trying to increase Now what we stop mid-season, or what we call Fulvic short or Humic short. We had a way higher yield than the control, and we also had the high THC. So, so depending on whether you're growing for CBD or THC, is how you will how long you use this products that are stress relievers. So. But that's basically the bottom line on that one. And then you can see on the slide here too, this is work we did this is early on. See what works early on. What works late on is amino acids. So this is using our new product called nitroamino, which is a nitrogen amino acids, 12%. So that could be a little biased, but the plants, so the grower standard on the left here, were like, oh, that's the perfect shit, oh yeah, that's one of these, what they're doing. I'm not gonna go into what it is. It may be in the paper part, but the point of it is, this is the grower standard. This is using nitroamino. They need the aminos to make these terpenes and to fabricate the chemistry and providing a slow release nitrogen. Cannabis is not a salt loving plant. It's a humus loving plant. And it wants its nitrogen in the form of amino acids, not nitrates or ammonia for that matter. So, this is the next thing is going to be using the aminos. And we use them as a foliar too. It makes the fulvic with the amino. It's very water soluble. And then we use that as a foliar and as a triggering effect at flowering in cannabis. So yeah.
One of your big distributors, well, I shouldn't say that. One of your distributors that sells to the cannabis trade is Build a Soil, Jeremy Silva. And he developed that company based on my writings starting about 10 years ago. And one night I asked him, I said, because he asked the same questions a lot, So finally one night I said, don't you ever take notes on this stuff? As a matter of fact, he did. And then he now he has the largest organic supply deal for the cannabis, thing online. And that doesn't mean I agree with everything that he does. I'm just saying that there's a lot of science that goes into the products that he sells. And when he told me that he was going to be a distributor for your products, I thought to myself, well, he's on the road now. And so he found other products that I wasn't familiar with and might not even use, but that was at the core was the bioag products, and people that have used your products as described and explained have done really well, very well. And I'm really excited about getting the other products that I haven't tried yet, the silica and the other two or three that you mentioned. I'll get on in order tomorrow.
Aminos. And this is all new stuff, like our nitroamino. This is totally new stuff and new research. Right. Here's one that we did with White Widow. This was one of our client, one of our customers, I guess. But what it shows here is kind of interesting. The grower standard, the old grower standard. And then we're using our full power. And then we're testing for increase nutrient uptake. In this case, it's nitrogen. So it's 100% increase uptake with the full power, and the grower standard versus grower standard with full power. So it's really, allows, the plant to utilize that. So it doesn't just go down the drain. Online, and then here, what's this one? Potash, 59% increase over grower standard. I guess that's why people love our product.
Yes.
But this, they don't necessarily know why, but I mean, this is one of the reasons. is they're getting more out of, what they've already, whether it's a field, regular crop farmer or whatever it is. You're getting more bang for your buck. You're getting more out of your fertilizer. Is not going down the drain.
That's right.
As much.
Yeah.
And how is the uptake measured or quantified in this scenario? Is it through sap analysis, or is it just in volume that it receives? Sorry for not having read it.
Yeah, no, it'd be full leaf analysis.
Okay, awesome.
Using it's pretty common, in agricultural business to do leaf or petiole analysis or sap analysis, things like that.
True,
It's
but
almost routine. So this is sort of routine testing, leaf analysis.
A lot of routine standards in agriculture don't always follow over into cannabis. So I always want to ask, granted, the company that I'm speaking with, I have full faith in it, but as that objective voice, I always like to try to ask those questions because some people don't know. Again, we're talking cannabis here.
Right. It's special.
Yeah. Well,
it has to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it's just another crop. I mean, like I was talking about, my ancestors were growing it in the 1730s outside of Philadelphia. So it's not really something new to us that much. So to me, it's just another crop. And I'm a crop consultant and agronomist and big stuff, all kind, everything, you name it. And so that's the perspective I'm coming from. So I just use those techniques that we use in regular specialty crop agriculture applied to hemp or cannabis, because to me it's just another crop.
Yeah.
And so there's ways to get at how to make it a better crop.
You and I, Dr. Faust, are of an age that we were lucky enough to smoke imports. Now, was that the best?
Well, that's another thing.
Yeah, that's yeah, exactly.
Well,
I promise you that a Thai stick from Thailand.
Oh, I knew I had one on terpenes. I knew I had a terpene slide. There it is. Yeah. So more terps, bigger buds.
That's right.
Well, I mean, it's what we're trying to do in strawberries, blueberries, you name it. Yeah. It's the same game, right?
Yeah.
To me, I was a coffee grower, avocado grower in Hawaii, and and other things.
You probably don't remember this, but the day that I called many years ago, and I asked you about neem, and before you answered it, you said, you're talking to me, and you said, you're the first person that's ever asked me about neem that, wasn't a commercial farmer, because you'd come out, was introduced to it or whatever, became familiar with it when your time in Hawaii is heading up the biodynamic group there. And so that really gave me a lot of confidence that I was on the right track, because I'd already known your products. And then when you said, neem, and you were like almost animated that finally you got to talk to somebody that wasn't carrying around a bag of bullshit about what neem is, or, what
it's lonely. It's a lonely world in the neem world.
I got introduced to it from a book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And in the book, he talks about returning to India. And on that trip, he went to see the Mahatma Gandhi. And every morning when Mahatma would get up, he would eat 2 fresh leaves from his neem tree in his patio. And as a way of reminding him spiritually that life is a balance of sweet and bitter, and there's nothing more bitter. But very few plant materials are as bitter as neem leaves. So it was
bitter. Bitters are good.
Right.
Bitters are universal medicines all over the world.
Sure.
Like down Jamaica, they have something, and Belize they have something they call jackass bitters. And that's a potent medicine. But I just happen to have this in front of me. But this thing, I don't know if they have me on the screen now. This is an Ayurvedic herb. It's 2 in combination. Andrographis. Remember that name, Andrographis, because it could save your life. It could save your life. This is an Ayurvedic herb. It's a plant. It's called the mother of bitter, or the queen of bitter, right? Okay, so the research in Thailand and in Asia, India, this is a cure for COVID. Okay, I mean, they did massive trials. They're producing it in the prison system in Thailand. And they did massive trials with thousands of people. But it's actually this Andrographis, which is this Ayurvedic formula, has been used for thousands of years. It's like, it's the go-to thing for plague and flu and upper respiratory, right? There it is. And I bought it at a vitamin store in Corvallis. Andrographis. Of course, they can't claim, that it does anything.
All right.
But if you read the research, you will see what this does. But again, neem is the same thing. I have neem leaf capsules too. I have neem.
Right.
And they have like their own effects. But this particular one is a good one to stock up on, because this one actually is the cure for not just COVID, but other viral infections.
In the Ayurvedic medical system, a huge percentage of the preparations include some part of the neem tree, the root, the bark, leaves, the kernel, the meal that's left over after you press the oil. So it's amazing how integrated that tree. In fact, in one of the languages, I think it's Puli, the name for the neem tree literally translates into village pharmacy. And almost every culture that the neem tree moved to by way of India, it became the holy plant, regardless of whether it was Islam, Hindu, Jains, or whatever. So it had that much influence on the subcontinent, on various cultures. So, but now it's a poison.
Every culture has, because you can't grow neem trees everywhere. That's like, you're talking 15 degrees north and south latitude.
Right.
It's like coffee, it's, you're not going to, so every area in the world had their own bitters, that had the similar effect.
Right.
Whole range, like, you've heard of Bitterroot, the Bitterroot Mountains in Montana. Well,
Right.
it's named after the Bitterroot, which is what the Native American tonic and anti-cancer, by the way. I know a guy that got thrown in prison for making a salve out of Bitterroot and curing people's skin cancer.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up in a federal prison over that. Now he's living in Ecuador.
There's a website, a companion website to a book. There's a companion website to a book of the same name called neemresearch.ca, which is Canada. He's actually Punjabi, but he lives in Canada. And this book has nothing to do with agronomy, strictly the medicinal benefits and uses of neem, oral health, diabetes, blood purification. And yet you get into the cannabis and somebody wants to sell you a something, and all of a sudden this stuff is poison and you're risking, your ability to reproduce or whatever the latest scam is.
That might be a good thing.
Well, in some cases, I can point out some parts of the United States that I would want to, I'd pay to have the trees planted. If that's what it did, was limit reproduction. But I mean, it's just, it's one of the most closed-minded environments to try to work in, because there's so much silliness. It's not science, it's just bullshit. And
that's what they're exposed to. I mean, that's what they're molded. They're molded and indoctrinated, and that's how it is, unless they get some alternative approach to reality and consciousness. And that's where mushrooms come in.
Yes.
But,
yes. I'm a microdoser. I'm going on my fourth year now microdosing. So I can speak to its ability to move people's lives forward in very positive ways.
We can't change old timers either. I mean, forget trying to like convince these farmers, these old timers. The hope is in youth.
Yes.
Youth them.
Yes.
You know, you got to give them like something, you know, to hold on to and believe in the right information. You know.
Weren't you in Ecuador working with the poor at one time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've been looking at moving to Ecuador, and so in view of that,
we do business there. Yeah,
I bought some
spores.
I bought some spores from Ecuador. Just I wanted to get in the whole Andean thing, and well, what a nice mushroom! Yeah, and I also got some from Honduras. Now, here's the goofiest thing in the world. You can buy spores. It's illegal. You can sell spores. It's
in
legal.
Oregon, it is.
There's only three. Yeah, there's only 3 states that's not legal. Georgia, which makes sense. Utah, that really makes sense. But the one that doesn't is California.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is
like,
kind of.
That's the goofy
except
one.
Except Oakland. If you're in Oakland.
Yeah.
Depends
Now
what
that
city
we have,
you're in.
now that we have, we voted in the right to research. It didn't make it legal, but at least research is now being allowed under Oregon law. And there's some really interesting help groups where they're trying to help patients, because they're not. I don't see how you monetize magic mushrooms. I'm sure somebody will try to do it, you know.
Well, regulatory capture. That's how you do everything.
Yeah.
When you put them into a vapor cart.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line is, you know, that's the whole plan of the mushrooms. I mean, different fungi, you know, have effect on organisms, you know, behavior. I can go into it. It's incredibly amazing. Okay. You know, it just blow your mind. Like some of these interactions between fungi and mammals and controlling their behavior to foster the fungi. Okay. So it's eventually everybody will be able to grow them in their backyard. I mean, it's like a bludgeoning industry, you know, but the spores, the growing, you know, it's something that is immune from, I don't know, control. You know,
that was what I was trying to say. Yeah. It's going to be real hard to monetize it, you know. Yeah.
And it's winning. It's winning from the days. I mean, I took my first dose of a bunch of different psychedelics. It was when I was in the university, and it happens to be a university that's really into organic chemistry.
Right.
And so there's a lot of chemists, right? University of Delaware.
My first mushrooms
and it was legal. It was legal at that point. So it was legal for a few years, see? And then they cut it. And Nixon. Yeah. Nixon came.
Don't change dicks in the middle of a screw. Re-elect Nixon in 72.
And he was from California, by the way. Nixon was California.
Whittier, California.
Yeah. So there you go. There's the part of California that,
So I've got 54 years of using mushrooms. Summer of Love 68 was the first. Not psychedelic because I had done LSD, but or whatever it was called. I'm not sure about that. Some of it was ALD 52 when the guys went to trial. So I've had and I will say this: almost every mushroom I took for the first 50 years was horrible. It wasn't dried correctly. It was wet. It was, slimy. Until you grow your own, correctly dehydrate it and store it, you really haven't had, the real deal. Because the stuff you get in the black market, I don't like that term, but stuff you get on the street or whatever the term is really pretty rough, for the most part. It's like, get it out the door, I want my money kind of thing, kind of like weed in the early days. Cure? What do you mean cure? I dried it. Oh, good. That'll work.
Well, you should see the ones they sell, the mushroom tea stands on the beach at Negril, Jamaica,
Oh, yeah.
where they have a pot with firewood. It's like a witch's cauldron
Yeah.
and a pile of black kind of slimy mushrooms. It's like scare the hell out of you, you know.
Yeah.
And then they sell you a cup of mushroom tea, and it's one of the few places in the world where it's legal.
Yeah.
It has been forever in Jamaica,
People
and
don't-
you talk about, it kind of scares you the way they, you see their preparation methods down there.
I've had
But
some
there- people-
spores from
Americans
Thailand that
are
were
down.
yeah.
They're setting up a cannabis retreat, cannabis.
Mm.
I don't know what you call it. I was going to say healing center, but that's not really right. But like mushroom psilocybin retreat situations, which is what we're going to have here in Oregon, supposedly. But yeah. But here it'll be so controlled. I guarantee it won't be moldy. It'll be tested.
Yeah.
And it'll be, it's going to cost big bucks by the time you're done. That's what it's going to be.
And anybody can grow mushrooms. This isn't required.
Well, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tricky. I mean, it's
Right.
on our level. But it's sure. It's just like it's cookbook in a way.
Yeah.
You just have to know the formula, right?
A, B, C, D. Yeah.
Like
Follow the.
a lot of things. A lot of things that I do.
Yeah.
But so that's the best hope. But it's here to kind of modify our our behavior. And of course, it's working because it fosters people growing it,
Right.
and helping it complete its life cycle. So it's a symbiosis. We're helping it. We're spreading it all over the world. It's spores. It's doing its job, just like toxoplasmosis in cats.
In some countries, some Western European countries, you can buy spores on Amazon. It's legal to buy them. Yeah, England, not England, but Germany, I know. And anyway, there's several European countries that their Amazon branch can legally sell you liquid culture, whatever, spore prints, liquid culture, syringes, what have you. That's amazing to me.
Well, the thing of it is, you can come out where I am at right now, at the foothills of the front coastal range.
Yeah.
And you can find some of the most potent types free.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have the psilocybe cyanescens out here, grows in wood chips.
Right.
One of the most potent ones.
Right.
And like there's 5 or 6 that are that grow here if you look, if you know what to look for. And then you get your spore print and you get a culture of a mushroom, psilocybe mushroom that's adapted to Oregon.
Right. Right.
And you can actually grow them outside
and in Southern Oregon, liberties are very, very common. Liberty, it's
liberty
like
cap.
Yeah. And they're
subenchuladas something. Yeah. So that's one of them out here.
I like it. I like to use it to relieve psychic boredom every few months. I mean, I do microdose. I only do 0.2 grams, a gram a week. 5 days at 0.2, and then take 2 days off, and then stack it with 2 grams of lion's mane and Paul Stamets protocol, as it's widely described. So that was another reason I got into growing the lion's mane, was to have a pure source of that material to go along with the psilocybe microdose. So It's very effective for treating anxiety, depression, addictions, some nerve damage, diabetes, neuropathy in your feet, what have you. Rebuild some of the. That's where the lion's mane comes in, especially to repair both brain cells as well as nerve ending. So there's a lot of healing potential, and Nixon's bullshit Schedule 1 kept that research at bay for 50 years. And we now are the first state at a statewide level to allow for that research to move forward, fortunately. And there's some really good,
Well, it will. You see the fungal symbiont, worked. I mean, obviously these legislatures and people especially behind the referendum,
right,
were affected. In other words, the fungi, psilocybin mushroom, modified their behavior to foster the psilocybin mushroom.
Right.
Just like it fosters, fungi foster animals to practically commit suicide. Be their host for the fungi. So yeah, I mean, it's actually hard to even imagine the power of something like that.
Yes.
So supposedly a lower life form can actually affect behavior in higher organisms, higher species.
Well,
so that's a big mystery. So, I mean, I would listen to Terence McKenna talk about these things.
Yeah. We're only one heroic trip away from enlightenment, so.
And, so it's a gradual process. It's a gradual process.
Yeah.
It's not instant. It's generational. So there'll be changes if we survive that long. I mean, if the whole thing doesn't just start falling apart, which it is already, but but we'll see.
I won't be here. I had a good life.
Technology pulls us out of the fire. We're going to Mars, guys.
Yeah.
Really going to need some humic acid for that one. No, they
I'm
actually
believe. I'm going to be on your website tomorrow ordering these new products because I don't think they have them in concentrate yet. I was just there last week.
Well, they should. You should encourage them to get them.
Oh yeah, I will. Yeah, I'm one of their more popular customers over there because of the amount of business I brought to them.
Yeah. So that's how you really get these people to carry stuff. Is they see some demand, they see like interest.
Yeah.
And that's what makes stuff expensive. Is you have to, it's very expensive to educate the public.
I knew I made it, Dr. Faust, when I went there a few years ago, and one of the customer service people, I told him who I was, and he pulled out this laminated piece of paper, and it had Coot's mix on it, and it had the recipe. Because people would come in, well, what's in the Coot's mix? And they could pull it out of their pocket, and they just walk them through the warehouse and go, you need a bag of this, a bag of that, a bale of this, a bale of that. And it became like a kind of a running, not a joke, but a point of humor. And I said, let me see your card, let me see your Coot's mix card. Make sure you got it up to date. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed working with them over the years. They've really been a good friend to the organic the organic farm, and not just cannabis, but the organic agronomy in general. They've been a good friend and a good supplier. So good stuff for sure.
What do you have any advice, Dr. Faust, as far as chitinase sources? I know Coot is a huge proponent of chitinase from fermented barley. Is there anything that you recommend?
Well, we have a lot of different things. I'm not there's just so many of these fish products out there. I mean, matter of fact, I was involved with a guy who, was taking some of our humics and mixing them with this crab waste up here in Washington.
Yeah.
And composting it. So he'd take our humate, our raw humate, not our soluble, and then he was combining it with or was that somebody else? But anyway, they were composting it was the crab waste, I believe, high in chitin, and breaking it down, like, composting it with humic acid and stuff like that. Yeah. So that would be a good, definitely, you could afford to put enough on to do some good. That's the other part, putting on enough to do some good. See, so a lot of these organic fertilizers, they're not using, of course, I'm thinking more in terms of large scale farming. But so on a field or on a farm, to put on enough that's going to do you some good is going to really cost you. See, so how about some composted crab waste? I mean, I'm talking about, as an organic farmer, if I was an organic farmer, if I was specialty crops or whatever, I'd want to put on enough to do some good. So I'd get some of that stuff. Come to think of it, matter of fact, they gave me some. That's right. But up here in, I forget where, I even forget the name of the company, which is terrible. They should forget that.
It wasn't a sea power, was it?
It could have been.
Yeah.
Like anything though, if there's a return on it, if it's expensive, okay, but if it gives you a return, whether that's quantified in profit or potential building of the soil and moving forward. But yeah, I think that's something to look at too, when talking at the field level,
Right.
Yeah, at the field farm level, we want to see a 6-to-1 return. So if something costs $1, I want $6 back. In fact, if you're going to register a fertilizer product like ours in China, for instance, in other places, you have to show by research a 6-to-1 return. So it's really evidence-based, and it's something that you can rely on. I mean, okay, so an input as an investment. So the return. So they farmers though around here, they see everything you add. A lot of the farmers in the world as an expense. Well, this is costing me this much per acre. They're thinking pesticide kind of thinking. It's an expense. Whereas in reality, it's a good investment. It's a better investment than like what you're going to get out of the crop. I mean, it's a 6-to-1 return. So that's what we're looking for. A reliable, something that's makes economic sense. Because otherwise, what good is it? For at least what we're doing. In our world. Our world is specialty crops in general. Cannabis is another specialty crop. Like mint or apples, whatever. So I prefer to make it an organic specialty crop. So we have to find something that we can use that pays back. Because then you go out of business and you have to go to town and get a job. No farmer wants to have to go to town and get a job.
Yeah. Plus, Oregon grows some of the finest mint over in Bend in that area, and then also here in the Willamette Valley. That's, for example, once it's concentrated and shipped to end users like Wrigley Gum, that barrel of oil, mint oil, can only one barrel on a truck. So you pay the page for a truck and a driver for one barrel. That's how volatile it is. And it has to be placarded with all kinds of hazardous hazmat placards all around the truck, but the cost of that one barrel would boggle most people's minds. It's like almost $300,000. It's that concentrated. So
I know it. There's a company here.
You know what I'm
that
talking
does
about.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matter of
Exactly,
fact, they're
yeah.
farming mint all around me here. It's a very
Yeah.
destructive crop the way they farm it.
Right.
The
Right.
industrial model.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's a big thing around here. It smells good.
Yeah.
During harvest time.
Right.
But they were asking me about regulating hemp. How should we regulate cannabis? What kind of standards? They debate this. What about testing? And I said, look, it's herb. It's herbs. Like, what kind of standards do they have on mint? Or some of these other crops. I mean, why should it be different? I mean, we've already gone down that road.
Right.
Herbs, there's already regulations behind it. Okay, it's another herb. Of course, they didn't see my way of thinking on it. But that's about it, so it's well, I work with people growing hemp, see, and they really lost a lot of money.
Oh God, they got beat up.
So yeah, it turns into, so if hemp ever becomes a regular kind of crop, it's going to be the same thing. Everything's got to pay. It's got to work, or you're going to go to town and get a job, and sell your farm to some of these guys around here, that end up renting or buying everybody else's farms that went belly up.
Yep.
So
the CBD was a big destroyer of revenue about 5 years. They talked these farmers in, they're going to make $35,000 an acre. In what world are you living? And so they made big investments. Oh yeah, they went for it. And the thing was a scam.
And we learned a lot. I was able to actually, for the first time since the Fausts, gave up growing hemp, whenever that was, and to grow a field of hemp. So I did get to go out and be in big hemp field and use our products to grow hemp and do trials and all that. So that's, to me, it was a breakthrough. Okay, I get to do this, on a mass scale,
right?
And I'm not losing any money on it.
Right.
I ain't losing any money. Somebody is, but I'm gaining, knowledge behind it. See.
Right.
So to me, it's sad though. I mean, I hate to see people have all that crop and, not what are we going to do with it? That's a sad scenario, which I've warned everybody against it.
Yeah.
Processing was the bottleneck, right? That was the problem.
That was a bottleneck.
Was getting it processed there in Oregon.
Because people promised, they set up processing and then they fell through, or they went belly up before they could do the processing. And so farmers were counting on that, and then it didn't happen. That was
the
one
Ponzi scheme. Ponzi scheme.
And the seed, the dollar seed.
Oh yeah.
Dollar seed scam. And those people made millions.
Of course.
Actually, literally.
Of course.
And so
fertilizer companies don't go out of business. You know that better than I do. They're always
they do. All the little ones. Little ones got ate up by the big ones. Yeah. I saw that happening in my life. Of course, I saw everything get eaten up by the big guys in my life. I saw all the small farms and family farms and small business and small fertilizer dealers and everything, get eaten up by the big boys. So
it's happened. It happened in the cannabis scene here.
I don't.
In the good old days, it was the criminals like me. You grew your
good
weed.
Old criminal.
You got to do the East Coast where you made your money.
Sure.
Stay out of Texas. Stay out of Florida. If you want to go to prison forever, get it into New York. Yeah. Make your money, and then come back and distribute it and plant it for next season. But then, now we got the guys with the spreadsheets and their laptops and, hedge funds out of Canada and gold leaf and the banks.
Sure. It's a gold rush.
Yeah, sure is.
Rush. Yeah. Everything's a series of gold rush.
All right.
It's part of it.
Used to be fun running a load from California to New York. You know, you travel at night.
Oh, not
Always
me.
have.
That's that's a little too much.
Yeah,
It's a little too much.
it's all right. I got taken down, so
Yeah.
I had to go to way of school, as the expression goes. So, yeah.
No, that's something I would never do. I was too scared about going to jail. Didn't like the idea, you know.
Yeah, I wasn't
It wasn't
scared
worth
enough. Yeah.
I can make money other ways. I can make
Yeah.
money legal ways. People would offer me like $50,000 just to fly a single engine airplane across
Oh
the
yeah.
border
Oh yeah.
to Canada, but I wouldn't. Nope, I ain't. Are you kidding?
No.
You know, but of course, if you really needed the money, but no, I was never
Yeah, yeah.
tempted.
Wait a few more
Even
years.
as easy as it would have been, you know, would have been very easy. But then, you know, that's greed, and greed can, you know, come back and bite you.
Greed will always get caught.
Yep.
Greedy always gets caught.
That's right. There's no free lunch in this world, period. And all the hopes
It's a
and
jungle,
promises,
you know?
yeah.
You don't want to,
Yeah.
you know, you want to avoid the dogs.
Well, you can
Jackals.
verify this. In the first big loads, forget Mexico for a minute, because that's where it originally came across in the 60s. Mostly from the guys from Laguna Beach, you know, the Brotherhood guys that were bouncing some loads over. But by the time it got to Colombia, which a lot of it wasn't even grown in Colombia, I used to get these bales and they were stamped machine products from Argentina. Does somebody really think that they were moving loads out of Colombia all the way to Argentina to get them packed? But anyway, the worst weed that God ever put on this planet was Colombian. And yet today I will hear people, oh, you don't know, we got the good stuff. No, you didn't. There was no good stuff. It was just bulk. You sold Colombian so you could go get Oaxacan or Thai sticks. You didn't smoke it. You know, you just moved it. And I mean, just the amount of that was the end of the 70s, the disco era, before we got all whacked. I didn't, but you know, the society got whacked out on cocaine. And that pretty much killed the Colombian deal, because a lot more money, as you as a pilot can vouch for this, a lot more money in a plane load of coke than a plane load of weed. So if you were a smuggler, guess what? You were going to smuggle, you know, cocaine, Peruvian rock or Bolivian flake, or was it the other way around? I don't remember which one was a rock, one was a flake. And they would argue about which is better, you know, like, you're addicted. What does it matter which one's better? You know, I mean, we're not talking wine here. We're talking cocaine. So
It's the same thing where they take a harmless plant, you know, that's been used for centuries and
Right.
still is. I mean, the coca plant, it's kind of benign, you know, you chew it,
Yep.
you make tea out of it. You know, it's certainly not like very spectacular, because I've done it in Ecuador. But,
Right.
you know, it's fine. I mean, it has a lot of benefits. It's really, really a good thing. You know, I love the tea. The tea is just nice, you know. But
Yeah.
then you take that, a nice herbal kind of a thing like coffee or tea, you know,
right.
coca, you know, and then you turn it into like, you know, concentrate. You have to concentrate it.
Yeah, right. Smuggle, because you need
Making
one. Yeah,
liquor.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the problem comes in. I mean, it's just like a difference between smoking opium and heroin, you know. So
Good
illegality
analogy.
causes
Yeah, exactly.
illegality is what's behind that. See?
Yes.
Now, if it was just the natural plants, you know, hey, you know, the world's not going to end, right? I mean, it was never an issue in the first place. See,
Big
but that's
world of
what created
difference.
the whole problem.
Yeah.
If you can grow your own weed and your own like
Yeah.
bush,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it kind of takes all the crime out of it. I mean, you know, you
And
have
now in Oregon,
right
we
there.
can.
You buy
We
it
can grow
down on the you know, the street. You buy it at the in Ecuador, in the Andes. You buy it in like a farmer's market kind of a place that people that don't specialize in
Okay.
just that coca.
I got to ask you,
Coca.
since you know more about, obviously, you know a lot more about Ecuador than I do. So do I want to live in Cuenca or manta on the coast?
Well, I don't think manta on the coast, but it's just, I mean, they're two really different kind of places.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Different.
Right.
One's hot and humid. I mean, people, it's just like Hawaii.
Yeah.
Most of the people that lived in the Big Island of Hawaii were living at 1,600 to 2,000 feet elevation. See, so, it's a lot more comfortable, and the same with Ecuador. So the coast is going to be, hot and humid and
Okay.
and then you get to Cuenca, see, it's 8,600 feet.
Right.
And then there's places in between. So it's really all about, because you're right on the equator.
Right.
So,
right.
So then it depends on elevation. See, so.
What I liked about
people,
Cuenca is that
that's pretty high elevation. Cuenca is high elevation, but it's not as high as Quito.
right.
And there's people that live and farm as high as 14,000 feet and higher.
Right.
I would definitely, faint getting off the plane. They have a warning sign in Quito too about that, about now you're entering an area where it's close to 10,000 feet elevation. Take it easy. And they got like medical staff at the airport.
Right.
For that. So, so you got to think about those issues. But I've been to the coastal areas, but
you didn't like it, huh? Yeah.
It's
the humidity.
It's a different culture too. I mean, this is
sure
a more dangerous place in some ways.
Right.
The
Cuenca, you have a lot of expats, different. And not just from America,
Cuenca,
Canadian and Australian. Yeah, it's like expat central. Yeah,
and it's just comfortable spring all the time kind of a place. Where you like have the wet season and the dry season. It's like Hawaii. And but it's
money
cool.
CDs still pay 8.5%.
It's not.
Can you imagine that? 8.5% on money CDs in Ecuador.
That's pretty good.
Here, I'm lucky to get my checking account charges covered. Don't you guys pay interest? No, not at all. So you just use my money, Well, yeah. Oh, good system. I'm talking about the States. Yeah, you can have $500,000 in deposit and you get $25 a month to cover your checking account charges.
But 10 of that is a paper statement fee, and the other 5 is
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, Jesus. No, it's don't get me started. So it's the system is rigged, man. It's just insanely rigged.
That's why a lot of people do go to places like Ecuador or Panama because the cost of living down there is a fraction of what it is here.
Right.
And then you get lots of benefits if you're over 65. It's really a different world. It's a different kind of culture. And where you get free transportation, you get free tickets, you get so they have a different respect for older people down there. You can button the line at the supermarket to check out. Things like that.
Right.
They give you numbers at the bank and then a chair and you can sit and wait so that you don't have to wait in line.
Yeah.
So, in a way, it's a kinder, gentler place, at a certain level. And
I love Oregon, but I don't know. You're kind of pigeonholed on your money. What am I going to invest in? A weed farm with people I don't like? I mean, I don't want to be involved in that. You're always looking over it. No, it's not worth it. It's just, if I wanted to be a fertilizer distributor, I'd go work for Concentrates or something.
Because, I mean, you can go to South America and places like Ecuador and lots of places. And for what you can buy a cheap house in Oregon, you can get a villa. You can get like a hacienda and shit,
And what's really neat is that at the federal level, GMOs are banned. There's a really thriving, well, you know this, a thriving organic agricultural sector. So if you are into eating a plant-based diet, I mean, $1 buys you 20 bananas in Cuenca at the Mercado. I mean, a nickel a banana.
Yeah, you can probably get them cheap than that. You grow your own in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly, right. You grow the good ones, the red ones from India, you know, the ones that are
I
really
always have a
natural.
stock of bananas in my garage.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, so you can live down there on $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
One person.
Yeah.
And rent a pretty nice place.
And you don't need a car.
No, you don't. I mean, it's a little inconvenient, but yeah. Or actually, so it can be more convenient because people would recommend a driver to us. They'd say,
right.
"Oh, you should get this guy. Here's his phone number. Here, I'll call."
Yeah.
And so they all know like a driver they like, you know.
Yeah.
And one of them was a guy named Giovanni. I remember him, but he was, oh yeah, this guy. He's a good hire. So you hire a guy all day to drive for like $50 or, you know, you give them tips. They only want like 30. You know, a cab ride's only $3.
Right.
You know, anywhere in the city. It's about $3.
And they like it. They like expats because they're not competing for jobs. They arrive there with money to spend. They're retired, so they're not trying to hustle. And it feeds the economy for the working class folks of Ecuador to cater to the expats, not cater, but, you know, to fulfill their wants and needs and desires. It's a win-win situation for everybody. As long as you don't go down there and play the ugly American and I don't want to learn your language and, you know.
That's what happens. That's what happens.
Yeah.
It turns off the locals to the expatriates. See, the expatriates, a lot of them are like walking ATM machines for certain people, you know, so they're preyed on. So you got to realize that there are people, you know, preying on you down there. I mean, so it's like, so it's not like necessarily a walk in the park, you know, because, you know, it's a different world where everybody has like bars on their windows and grating, and they have like fences with razor wire or embedded glass. They have alarms. They buzz you in, you know, and they have dogs, which drive me fucking crazy. The barking of dogs all night. And then a truck rumbles by and all these car alarms go off. It's just crazy shit, you know. So they got like we stayed in a place and it had like a stone wall about 10, 15 feet tall. It had 22,000 volt wires running around the top. A lot of people had high voltage, you know, wires around there. So so you go to the bank and you go to the ATM machine at the bank, just like they have your US dollars. Of course, Ecuador uses US dollars.
That's right.
You go to the ATM, and as soon as you walk up to the ATM and get your card out, a guy comes out of the bank with a pump shotgun, 12 gauge, and a bandolier, and he stands there guard while you get your $20.
Oh, geez.
Out of the ATM machine.
Yeah.
That sounds worse than Detroit. I don't know if I want to go there.
Well, no, but it's just like anything, you know. Detroit. I spent a lot of time as a kid in younger days in Philadelphia and New York. So I mean, you had to be somewhat streetwise, of course.
Don't count your money at the ATM when you're done.
You know, so you have to be a little bit aware because it's a different kind of jungle.
Oh yeah.
So when you're in third world countries, you're sort of prey, you know, and they have schools down there where you can send your kid to school or college, or you can send them to pickpocket school. So in Ecuador, they have like pickpocket school. I'm going to send my kid to pickpocket school. And they have all kinds of ways of ripping you off. I mean, they go to school for it. All kinds of ways.
Yeah.
They use a powder of the datura plant and they'll blow that into your face or put it in your drink and you become a zombie. You heard about that one? The breath of Satan.
Wow.
Yeah. So they use that on you in a lot of different ways. I mean, they'll even, women will entice stupid gringos, and then they get close and they have it like in their nostril, behind a piece of cotton, and they puff it in your face. And then you become almost a zombie, and they say, okay, let's go to the ATM machine. Okay, take out all the money you can take out. Okay, let's go to your apartment. We're going to unload all your furniture. You're going to help us load it in the truck. Okay, you do that. Or if it's a girl, you'd say, take off all your clothes. We're going to do some things, and they'll comply.
Wow.
And then you forget.
Fucked up drug. Yeah, it's fucking.
Yeah, so this is the shit they do. Okay, this is
scary is you can make it from a genus of plants that has a lot of different species, and worldwide it's on Europe, North America, South America, Asia, Australia has plants that have scopolamine. It's not a
it's devil's trumpet, or we call it angel's trumpet. They call it down there. It's common. You see it all over the place.
It's in
it's called angel's trumpet.
Has different levels. Most of it has different levels of scopolamine.
Yeah, and
So
it's the
Dr.
same people
Faust,
that make Coke that make that. The people that produce Coke.
Are you saying I should be better off to move to Brookings, Oregon than Ecuador?
Well, I mean, that depends who you are. If you're like a roughneck, martial artist, and you're streetwise, then I'd say go for it.
I'm a 70-year-old diabetic. I mean, let's get real here.
Well, I think it through a little more.
Yeah, okay.
Or have a bodyguard.
Nah, I don't want to do that.
You can trust them, I don't know.
Yeah.
But see, I used to be kind of a roughneck, so I could walk around by myself all these places,
Sure.
No, but I wouldn't do it now because unless I can, I'm not going to be able to handle myself in that scenario anymore.
Yeah.
But it's just being confident, looking confident when you're in third world countries. I've been in Cairo, I've been in Kingston, I've been in, you name it, all over. And you just have to, in Mexico, you just have to walk confident,
Mm-hmm.
Kingston's cool. I love
Head
Kingston.
up, confident, not like a fleeing animal.
Right. There's always a saying, there's like, there's an easier fight on the next block,
Yeah. That's the key.
Go take the easier fight.
I don't know. I never had a problem in Kingston. I was spending quite a lot.
I never had any problem. I never had any problem in Philadelphia either.
I grew up there, so good place to.
It's just knowing.
Kingston.
Well, you two guys grew up on the East Coast. Explain to me, now that they've got it legal, or it's going to be. Can you imagine growing in New Jersey with Santino and cousin Antony, and Salvatore? This ought to be. What could go wrong here, right?
No, I'm telling you, some of those guys down in the Pine Barrens are like Jedi masters when it comes to farming. Like,
I believe.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the old families.
They legalized
the Big Five,
the mafia,
the five families.
They always were. They were the guys. I remember when they sold pot that was ground up with seeds and everything in a little envelope. That's a $10 bag. That was the mafia. That was the Italian mafia doing that. So they've been doing
in the
that.
70s. In the 70s in New York City, a matchbook, the old wood matches, that size of a box with that crap you're talking about just ground up, was $10.
Yeah, a lid.
Yeah, right. That was a lid. Yeah, right. So,
but the mafia was behind a lot of that, and sure, if they legalize it in New Jersey, regulate it, Yeah, they'll be able to like dominate it again because
Yeah.
they specialize in that. They'll control, the regulators. They'll bribe everybody and threaten
Oh, yeah.
people. You know, you
They-
got to
What could
kick
go-
up the.
They've got the money.
What could go
Something
wrong
could
with-
happen.
What
Something
could go wrong
wrong.
here, right?
Break. Somebody, the windows could be, smash. Yeah, we can prevent that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
I know because my grandfather was a Sicilian in Philadelphia, so
Oh God, Jesus. Yeah,
Gas pipe.
I get it now.
he
Yeah,
wasn't a very nice person either.
no. Well, somebody asked me, what would it take?
So yeah, so that's what
You give
happens.
me
Actually, is going to happen. You see, back there
Yeah.
with legalization.
Oh yeah,
They're going to jump in. It'll be politicians. They're always in bed together. There's always like,
oh sure. But somebody asked me several.
But I'll
weeks
sell
ago-
them stuff. I'll sell them my product if they want to buy it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ship it COD.
Because I won't know. I never know anyway. I never know who
Yeah.
buys it. I never know who goes to distributors. Hey, if it goes to Tony and the boys down at the, it's okay. Paisanos,
Yeah, yeah,
Make sure you have tracking for the truck and it gets to the warehouse.
yeah.
yeah, because they'll hijack the truck. And they specialize
Can you
in that.
imagine going to Mississippi?
That's why I'm
to
out
grow
here.
weed?
That's why I'm out here in the woods because I hate all that.
Imagine being in Mississippi in July when it's 100 degrees and it's 92% humidity, and you're trying to run a cannabis farm. Can you imagine? I mean, I'd go back to alcohol before I do that. Before I live in Mississippi.
Oh, and that's a good
Jesus.
place. That's a good place for cannabis. Mississippi
yeah.
red dirt.
Yep.
That's
The
a good
weather,
place.
though. The weather, the humidity. Oh God.
That's
Or
great for
ma-
cannabis.
Imagine growing in Mobile out of Alabama. Sign me up. I'll sign a 5-year contract. Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah, no, hot, stressy places. That's where you want to grow it.
right.
Like Morocco and Sahara, North Africa, like, even the big island of Hawaii.
You get such different terpene expressions in the tropics with the same genetics. Having grown it myself now, I've even grown some strains in the US now and in Zimbabwe. And it's super trippy to see how much different they do in the different latitude.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Morphologically, how were they? Were they
Uh,
very similar morphologically?
No, they tended to be more bushy than they were at higher latitudes. They tended to be, more stout, even though the total number of hours, from when we planted them was the same, which I felt was a little bit strange. I'm assuming it's something to do with the angle of the sun being different,
Oh,
That's-
yeah. That's a big part.
Obviously that and soil and, the whole rest of it. It was a former tobacco facility that was then grazed for cattle for in the last, however long since the early 90s. And then, returned back into planted fields with irrigation and microbial inoculation, IMO inoculation.
Yeah. No, that's the best. That's the food belt of the world. And also the cannabis belt is like 15 degrees north and south latitude. That belt, that band, and it goes like through Hawaii, it'll go through Acapulco, it goes through Jamaica, it goes through North Africa, it goes through Middle East, India, is that particular band, and that's where you get the good coffee too, in there. And here you get tremendous growth. You get like incredible yield, and in this location, but you don't get the terpenes. You don't get the stuff that you're going to get in that tropical zone, the subtropical zone. That's the thing. Unless you use lights in the right way, and I think that's possible. It is possible because that's the thing in these areas, in the southern areas like that. you're getting, there's less, angle.
Mm.
For instance, on the equator, there's only 6 minutes, like in Ecuador, there's only 6 minutes difference of light between summer and winter. So you get, sun is still high in the sky at the ripening phase.
Mm.
See, so you're still getting all that UV, and here, the earth is turning away from the sun. So, September and October, you're getting less intensity. So at that end period, see, that's where, the THC and the terpenes form. Because I get, the difference between stuff like grown in Kona, and that'd be coffee too, in Jamaica, for potency. You can't buy around here unless it's that infused stuff, that they infuse. See, so that's what I was trying to do this year.
I do special order coffee from Kona. I do have to get the special order from Kona, because you're right. The Kona coffee at the grocery store is cut. It's not the real thing.
Oh yeah, it's not even 10%.
It's the best stuff. I'm agreeing.
Yeah, I was
kind of mentioned a little bit
getting
about
from Africa too. Pretty good African coffee out there. It's just about as good as Jamaican Blue Mountain or Kona, but it's way cheaper. It's like from Kenya, which is where the stuff came from to begin with. So, but yeah, so that whole flavor thing is what I'm into. I mean, in coffee and smokables, and so that whole trick, is how to get that kind of quality. And there you go. Go to that particular belt of the world, and that's where you'll find it.
Well, I've got to get going, but I wanted to thank you very much, Dr. Faust, for answering my questions about neem in particular, Fungamia as well. And I'm going to keep marching forward. I grow plants that aren't affected by mites and mildew, and that's my deal. Is I don't want to be dealing with herbivores and fungal problems, and concentrate on making the best soil that I can, the best potting soil that I can. And to that end, I put a lot of effort into it and have, and I think that the results speak for themselves. That may not be the best, but it's sure a lot better than I can buy in a dispensary here from some of these jamokes with their super strains and silliness, mono flavors. My God, what happened if you had like 4 or 5 terpenes? Would that like destroy the whole, dynamic or something? Or, I don't know. I'm a little jaded by the whole thing, I guess.
Oh, it's getting late. So yeah, I'm going to hang up. I got to get going.
appreciate you. I wanted to throw up your website here real quick.
Tomorrow.
There we go. I wanted to make sure we threw your website up here, Dr. Faust. Here's BioAg's website if you guys are interested in any of the stuff that he was talking about. They have the Full Power, which is a great product, good for aquaponics as well. It's got all the different other stuff, the Supersil, the silica he was talking about, the Humics, all the different awesome stuff. A lot of it's OMRI certified as well. Like most of it is. Oh, I'm having some kind of mouse issue here, but let me just do it this way. There we go. Yeah, it looks like most of it's OMRI certified as well, so definitely check that out. Great stuff. All of it's fish safe as far as I'm aware. All the stuff I've ever tested from their company has been no issues with the fish.
Yeah, first cabin all the way for sure. I've been using it for almost, I guess, 13 or something years. So nothing but high praise. And
well, for the fish, that's where actually Ecuador, our first sales, it's used in Ecuador in shrimp, commercial shrimp and fish aquaculture.
Mm-hmm.
They fertilize the water with it. Interesting side there.
But and if you want to learn more about that, there's more about Dr. Faust on the website as well, and a whole bunch of awesome resources as well for their different products and things. But we've been using them quite a long time in aquaponics, and they're great products, and he's super knowledgeable. Also, check out the previous episodes that Dr. Faust has been on. He has 2 other episodes where he's dropped a ton of other knowledge as well. As in addition to the conference that you're on over on the second annual virtual aquaponic cannabis conference, we do appreciate you educating us there as well. So thanks a lot for your time, and thank you, Coot, for coming on as well. I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk with us and talking to Dr. Faust tonight. Thank you very much for giving us your time this evening.
You're welcome. And again, I really I never miss an opportunity to speak with Dr. Faust. So it was, I used to call
Thank
him
you.
on the phone and bend his ear till he had to take another call or something. So we did that a
Much
lot
respect.
in the early years.
And I think Chad wants to say something too.
I was just hand modeling here. I was being the hand model here
Cool.
for everybody.
Yeah.
But
There it
no,
is.
yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, gentlemen, because I have learned a lot from you, and I'm going to continue to learn a lot from you. So thank you, and Steve as well. Thank you guys for letting me pop in with you. So thank you.
Thanks for
Nice
joining.
meeting you, and best wishes on your projects. So, all right, gentlemen, have a good one.
Thanks a lot,
What a
Coot.
nice one.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And Dr. Faust, any other ways that people can find you as well? Aside from
I hope not. I hope they can't find me.
okay.
No, I mean, yeah, you can go on our website, and we're gonna, or my channel, my YouTube channel too. I'm putting more and more stuff together on that.
I'll make sure we throw that up as well.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some things here in my new property, but not yet, not for a while.
Okay, cool.
This is
Well,
my sabbatical, my time for contemplation. So aloha all.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Faust. Really appreciate your time.
You bet. Bye.
Take it easy. And thank you, Chad. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and how people can find out more about your awesome educational content.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I kind of try to focus a little bit on the home grower. I want to see everybody have the ability to get started and to get growing. And I love these types of conversations because this is the next level. This is where you go once you've gotten started. So I want to get everybody started. And I do a lot of shows on Future Cannabis Project, the FCP02 channel, do the Perfectly Imperfect Grow Show, which is the first and third Saturdays. And that really focuses on the home grower. We kind of do tent tours. It's one of those things, you see a lot of different options of what people are doing. And I always say, if you're a smart person, you can see what's smart about the next guy or girl. So yeah, we just go in, we talk shop, and we learn a little bit of stuff from everybody. But I also will be getting my own YouTube page going very soon as well. It's actually going already. I was uploading a video tonight, but that's going to be more of a shorter format and just focusing again on the initial growing stages, because everybody needs to grow this plant, and there's a lot of people who could benefit from it that aren't growing yet. So let's get them growing. Thank you for letting me be long-winded there, but yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and then what's your Instagram? How can people find you?
Oh yeah, you can actually find me. I will update it very soon, chadwestport.com. It just kind of has a temporary page right now. Been busy. That'll be updated soon, chadwestport.com, and then Instagram, chad.westport. So I appreciate, anybody following, asking questions, point me in good directions. I love the communications there, and I've been watching chat and having seeing good people in chat all night as well. You know, a lot of good community members here, and you know, helping regulate. That's what we're here to do. So yeah, there we go. I got my Instagram page up there. Try to post some flyers for things I'm doing and some shots of my garden. So that's cool stuff. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And you guys are, I guess before we totally wrap it up, I wanted to plug real quick. First off, I wanted to plug the website that Coot mentioned earlier on the research stuff. This is medley.com. If you were wondering what that article app thing he was talking about is for Scholar and white papers, this is the app he was talking about. So that's that. And then, where is it here? The conference, so the Regenerative Conference, Josh from Dutch Blooms has got the Regenerative Conference going again this year. Coming up, he's got the tickets on sale now for Humboldt. It's January 28th through 30th. He's got Michigan 25th through 27th. And then we have Maine the 26th through 28th, and then Oklahoma April 29th through May 1st. So definitely check that out. It's definitely one of the, if not the best educational seminar that you can go to in person, in terms of just every single person there knows everything about everything and all different types of like different specialties and just about anything you could ever imagine. And on Sunday, they have an incredible legendary seed swap. Just bring something to share, and you will be very glad that you came. So definitely try to come out and make one of those. I'll be speaking there, full disclosure, but we also have Kevin Jodry, Susan Wainwright Evans, Chris Trump, Eric Branstead, myself, Michael Box, Joshua Rutherford. I know Dr. Elaine Ingham's going to be speaking there. Mean Genes from Mendocino is going to be at Humboldt. I don't know. I haven't looked at the latest flyer yet. I know he's added quite a few people since the last time I looked. So I have to look and see what the current lineup is. I do apologize, Josh, for not being more current on that, but definitely check that out. If you haven't, I know he's giving away some awesome goodies too. If you're one of the early people and you show up, when you show up, he's got some extra goodies for you when you show up in terms of genetic preservation kits and other things like that. And then also check out, we have the Aquaponic Cannabis class over apmjclass.com that Marty and I have as well. It's over a week long of recorded content, and we add more every single month. We have 2 live sessions every single month as well to answer your questions if you have a question about the course. So definitely check that out. We cover every aspect, start to finish, of how to get started with an aquaponic cannabis facility, be it small or large scale. And then if you need nutrients, we do have nutrient kits available as well over at apmjnewts.com. You can pick how many gallons your fish tank is. You can pick how many weeks of flowering time you want nutrients. And it'll give you packets that are pre-measured and predetermined to pour into your aquaponic system to account for what the fish waste does not provide for your plants. And you can see here some side-by-sides with and without that supplementation. You know, fish waste only, certainly you'll get weed, but I think we all want that back row versus the front one. So it gives you a good example of, you know, what some side-by-sides look with this nutrient formulation with versus without. So definitely check that out. And appreciate everyone's time tonight. Go check us out over at Aquaponic, Potent Ponics or Growing with Fishes on your favorite platform. Thank you everyone for supporting us this year. We have an awesome lineup now through the middle of January, and we're still booking people. So you guys are really going to like the awesome lineup we have for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And thanks everybody for supporting us. We had somebody sent me their Spotify thing and listened to me for over 28,000 minutes this year. I was like, holy shit. Like, so shout out to TJ. We're going to send you a t-shirt for listening to as much of us as probably as humanly possible this year. And we'll catch you guys all next week. Thanks for your support.